All right, welcome to patch 14.2 of League of Legends. My name is Chris, and joined with me is my friend Jason.
Hey man, good to be back after a few weeks, and I've got a little bit of a story for you actually.
All right, let's hop right into story time.
I thought you were gonna say, "Let's hop into the patch notes." Just completely no sell me. I was cooking some chili last night. I was sautéing some onions before I made the beans and the beef, and I'm spicing them up with some black pepper, some cumin, some chili pepper. I put a little bit of paprika in there. And as I do that, I notice like a little bit of red powder is coming out of the spice bottle, but mostly like these like darker flakes are just like falling right out of it onto my food. And I'm looking at that like, is that supposed to be my paprika? And I'm not sure for a second because I didn't have much light, but I looked a little closer, and that was definitely not paprika. All those little dark flakes were beetles. There were probably 75 of them that just fell through the holes of the spice bottle into my food as I was shaking it. Um, they were like, I guess what you'd call cereal bugs. So I looked back in the paprika bottle and was like, oh my god, there are thousands and thousands of little beetles in there just living on the paprika, digging above and below the surface. I was like, oh my god. Uh, Everything else in my closet, perfectly fine. That one bottle, 3,000 bugs in it.
All
So
right, I'm
I
going to be editing that out until it starts talking about League.
this does have something to do with the league because I finally found a product with more bugs than the PvP client.
That was a hell of a build-up. Did you want to talk about what was happening with the actual company?
Yeah, let's talk about that announcement that Riot made, where they're cutting over 500 jobs, about 11% of their workforce. And as far as what this means to the player base, I don't want to belittle what it means to the employees. You know, who are. I mean, this was once my dream a bunch of years ago to work for Riot. They were living it, and I feel awful for them. But as far as what it means for the players, right now we're losing Riot Forge, which is where they made all the indie games like the Mage Slayer, like that Bandle City farming sim that's coming out, like Hextech Mayhem. That's gone. Legends of Runeterra. Basically, they're taking all the focus off of PvP and only focusing on the PvE. That game might only have a couple years left in it before it's gone. They've said that they've really tried to pare down to their core business, which they consider to be League of Legends, Teamfight Tactics. I think they're including Valorant in that, and then they're still making Arcane Season 2, but I think we can probably not expect a Season 3 to come anymore. Um, Basically, this company has moved into its late maturity phase, and what comes after that in a business cycle is its harvest phase, where they're only going to be looking to milk the game. We're not there yet, and I think that they are still committed to trying to run their product strong and run it in a moral, ethical way. You know, because the people who are working at Riot do care about games, but what I think is happening, there's an interesting statement that they made. They said this isn't to appease shareholders or to hit a quarterly earnings number. It's a necessity. And you know, Chrissy, who owns Riot, right?
China.
Yeah, Tencent Holdings. It's like one of the three biggest conglomerate companies in the entire world. This isn't a necessity for Tencent. Like Tencent has enough money to float these jobs and to float every part of Riot's core business for an indefinite future if they wanted to. This is probably Tencent telling Riot, "Hey, we think you guys have been unfocused, and we do want to please our shareholders. And so we're either going to drop you, or we're going to just end the game if you don't focus on the things that are making money for us right now." That's what I kind of get from this. And what's really sad is like Riot has been in a growth phase for pretty much its entire history, more or less. They've always been looking to do ambitious things to keep expanding kind of their reach on the types of people that are interested in this League of Legends universe, and to draw more people into their core game that way.
Big
and
mistake.
that's ending. That's ending. They care less now
That's the dumb
about
mistake every company makes.
to keep trying to get more people into their core audience, or to stop doing that.
To keep trying to widen their target audience.
Yeah, so I think, for someone like you, right, for the short term, this may actually be a good thing. They're going to focus more on their core games. The bad thing is it means that any project that's not going to have a quick return on their equity in the future, I would guess they're not going to bother with anymore.
Well, my first take would be good and riddance to all of the other parasites that are leeching off the ass of League of Legends. What I would have liked to have seen,
I'm sad about it.
if they actually, I don't want to see Valorant because it's just a ripoff of derivative Overwatch. I don't want to see Hearthstone ripoff. What I would have liked to have seen is League of Legends, and then just all coalesce around probably a single player like RPG that takes place like in Runeterra, because there is a lot of target material after all of this time. I think that was the most practical thing that they could have explored, but they took
They
the dumbass approach and tried to pump out like 10 different genres of stupid ass games that every one of them's probably half-ass and will be around in a few years.
You wish they would have taken a lot more for something like Blade of the Rune King? Taken a lot more from the League universe and put a lot more effort into it?
What I'm saying is, if Legends of Runeterra is supposed to be some kind of RPG-ish thing, I think they should have just dumped 100% of their effort into making some really large, expansive game instead of making 25 piece of shit.
Yeah. I do wonder whether maybe they could have gone with a much different business model on Legends of Runeterra. Whether they had to make it a free-to-play game that was trying to sell all these chests and cosmetics.
Oh, that's the card game?
Legends of Runeterra is the card game, yeah.
Oh, my bad. I was talking about whatever their plans to make some RPG. I forgot. What was that? What was the name of that one?
Well, that was Blade of the Rune King. That came out like a year ago.
Well, whatever. I'm not interested in no card game or no fighter game or bullshit. They should have just focused on one big thing, and if that went well, then they could have focused on another big thing.
Well, what's really interesting is Riot Forge, right? I don't know exactly how involved Riot itself was, but Riot Forge was where they licensed, that they basically worked with indie developers to create games using the League of Legends universe and characters. So, like, they didn't have to make those games at Riot. I don't know whether there was anyone on the Riot staff that was making those games. There were probably people on the Riot staff that were advising those games, for sure.
If you just want to look at the future of Riot, just look at where Blizzard is right now. Because that's what the pipe that they're like staring down right now. And that's the pipe every big developer goes through in this pursuit of like infinite target audience. Because what they do is they develop this great product, which League was for a long time, and so words like StarCraft, Warcraft, Diablo, World of Warcraft, the big ones, everyone hailed as universal awesome stuff. And then they'll just get too full of themselves. They'll piss on their target audience in pursuit of younger whatever lunatics or whatever, and then the game will just keep changing. They'll alienate the old timers, and then the game will get so bloated that it's too dumb and confusing for new people to pick up. Like, how many new people do you think still pick up World of Warcraft? I'm gonna guess it's like, in like the four digits every year or something.
It's only people whose friends invite them to it, right?
Yeah, that's even worse. They're not even hearing.
And maybe they enjoy it while they're there, and they play it even without their friends.
That's even worse. They're not even hearing about it organic if they need someone else to like get them into it.
And in fairness, all MOBAs have that same problem. Nobody joins something like League of Legends without having a friend bring them into it. Nobody would ever play Dota without having a friend bring them into it.
True, but all the stuff I said about...
I had kind of a weird case like we talked about in episode 3, but...
You alienate the target audience, and then you make it very inaccessible for like new people to want to get into it because the game has been around for so long and there's so much crap to like stick up on. So new people don't want to get into it, and then you spend so much time trying to get new people that you alienate the original people that made your game a success, and then all you're left is old timers who eventually slip away like me basically.
And I'll finish. I'll finish up with the upshot of what I think is going to happen to the League of Legends core systems in the future in a second. But I do think that the Riot Forge really like seems like a weird thing to say we have to get rid of to focus on our core business. It would be like J.K. Rowling saying like I'm getting rid of the license for Harry Potter in the Universal parks because I need to focus on writing. Like she doesn't need to do that. Like Universal just cuts her a check for 8% every single year. You know, and they make the stuff for her, right? She has oversight if she wants. She can editorially take out anything from the attractions they make, or she can just say, you know what, guys, you're doing a good job. Use my property. Cut me a check. And I don't see why Riot wouldn't do that. As long as they're just have a couple people to obviously oversee the quality of what the indie studios are producing. But like get Rock Paper Shotgun in there to make like a roguelike. They're not gonna mess it up. This is really sad for me to see go, and seems unnecessary. What I think is going to happen to the League Score systems, I think going forward in the future, we're going to see less, and you may like this, but I think it'll make the game kind of stale and cause it to die quicker. We're going to see less like big mid-season updates. We're going to see less like overhauls to things like the terrain on the map like we just got in 14.1. There's not going to be enough people working on things like that because, I mean, every time you look at one of Riot's articles, right, they're from the systems design team, they're from the champion balance team, they're from the the mid-scale reworks team. They have so many different teams, and I think they're going to basically look and say a lot of these teams aren't really contributing to our bottom line. Let's cut them, or at least make them smaller, and then merge them together.
I think there's a chance what you're saying is true. But I also think that there's a good chance that they'll just continue on this reckless course and they'll just go at an even more crazy pace to turn the game into something that they perceive to be like as fresh as possible. Until they're like dying breath, they're going to try to preserve the pro scene. And what that means is they're just going to try to fucking accelerate the meta and make it as crazy as possible to keep the pro scene as fresh as possible.
They said that the esports is something that they're still very committed to. I doubt that.
I think that's all they're committed to.
The esports is all about bringing new eyes in. Like, that's its purpose. The purpose of the esports league was never to turn a green bottom line. Sure, they have skins, but those are skins that usually people are gonna buy skins that don't have a team name on them, that have like some type of theme they like instead. There's sponsorships, but usually like the teams get most of the sponsorship money and not Riot itself. I think they're gonna let their competitive esports league die within 5 years. That's my prediction.
No, I think it'll be the last reasons that they keep changing the game for. I don't think they've really been changing the game for like the common man for at least the last 5 or 6 years.
No, I agree with you. It's been more and more pro-focused because the professional scene was such an important part of their ability to gain respect as a sport, to gain interest from people who were like, oh, what's that? And then to come start playing the game. But it sounds like they're starting to shift away from that strategy. It sounds like it's more about let's harvest more money from the users we have than have these loss leaders like the esports.
I think League of Legends is more esports centric than like, I don't want to call League of Legends a strategy game, but the fact of the matter is it is like a top-down RTS essentially when it comes right down to it. And any other RTS game would have like a modding community and custom games and all this new content that the community would do, but all of that stuff in League is like relatively static, and everything, for example, that you would see like in the client or the launcher will always be about all these events that they're doing and all of the esports garbage that's going on and stuff. So I think League is going to be way more tied to the scene than you think, because I think if there's no pro scene, I don't really think there's much of a game, honestly.
Oh, I don't really agree with you. We might just have to agree to disagree, but like certainly in the early years of the game, most people didn't follow the pro scene.
That's,
It was just all about the game, and it
well,
grew like crazy.
that's because it was like a nothing game at first.
Mm,
This game was literally stealing
yeah,
Heroes of New Earth's user interface when it came out.
and it still had millions of players worldwide.
That took time.
Yeah.
It burst on the scene really fast. Anyway, the hell with this game. Let's go on to some
Let's do a
changes.
2-hour patch notes review about this game that
I don't want to
that might
spend
not
2
even be
hours on
here in a
this
couple
one.
of years.
There's a lot of dumb changes here, and then there's stuff I don't mind so much. And then, like usual, we're going to talk about the new champ at the end. And I am optimistic for the little tyke.
Yeah, yeah. I don't want to spoil myself too much, but hell of a lot better than the ASOL rework.
Well, we're definitely going to disagree on that one because I think that's one of the best they've ever done.
Let's do this.
Okay, first off, if you're using anything less than Windows 10, you're out of luck. And then we're going to get to champions. Alright, first up, got a pretty juicy change for Ahri. This probably stems from the lack of access to ability haste that the latest item buffoonery resulted in, which has kind of hit all of the AP champs to some degree.
Yeah, I mean, 2-second cooldown reduction on a CC skill is pretty huge.
Yep.
Even a 1-second reduction on a CC skill can often be enough to turn the tide of a fight. So this is a bigger buff to Ahri than it looks like.
Oh yeah. I think Ahri's in a pretty good place right now. I think she's been one of the most balanced champions in the game for her whole life cycle, so I'm cool with this.
Yeah, early on she was overpowered at times, but yeah, for a lot of years she's been a fairly well balanced champion, and I feel like ever since they gave her the fourth dash on her R, yeah, she's just pretty nice to play.
She only has 3 by default. She gets extra ones if she gets takedowns.
Right. But having that to get at after a fight or to chase down a second target is great.
Yeah, she probably should have just always had that. Okay, next up we've got Blitzcrank. We've got some head-scratching nerfs here. His mini rework I don't think was the most ambitious thing I've ever seen. And a lot of that fat's been cut out of that ever since. I'm not really sure what the thinking is with... I guess someone must think this guy is like too oppressive in lane or something, because if he's not doing good in lane, he falls off like harder than most in terms of the late game, other than pick potential, which is his whole reason for being.
Agree. I mean, his pick potential is what he's all about, right? And if he's behind, but a couple people on his team are ahead, he's still good to have around.
Yeah, but obviously he must be too strong in the laning phase because he's obviously he's too good later on.
This was a weird one to me, and it's especially strange to have his enhanced auto attack now deal less than the full amount of AD that his auto attack should do.
Especially considering it was just his total AD for like 12 years.
Oh, actually, wait a minute. No, it's 80% AD bonus physical damage, so it's actually 180% of his total AD, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a little bit less strange. But yeah, it's not like anyone's going 480 on Blitzcrank. Like this isn't a big nerf. But yeah, I'll agree. I'm surprised to see it at all.
Okay, next up we got Brand. Am I correct?
No, we
this isn't a buff or a nerf. It's just a visual thing.
It's not just visual. There's no power change on this. The difference is that the ticks come in smaller amounts.
I like that.
So that you might end up being able to kill someone with your burn like 3/4 of a second quicker, depending on how low their health is.
I like that.
Yeah, essentially it's power neutral, and that's because no power is changing. If you really want to get down nitty gritty, it's a very
buff.
slight.
Yeah. All right, next up we got Briar, who you keep claiming is redonkulously broken, and we have
Yep.
some
And
interesting
I continue to
changes
do it.
here. I have a few friends that have picked up this champion. I'm still like firmly in the opinion that she's pretty balanced. I got to be honest though.
That's cute.
All right, we have some tank incentives, and this is actually what I thought people would kind of be into when she first came out. Kind of build similar to Warwick, and I have seen some people build her bruiser, and it does look pretty fun. So we got some scaling with her bonus health, and then her enhanced little W that functions like Warwick's Q essentially also scales with her health. And it did crit for one patch, but that was probably crazy.
Right. And then we've got that weird AP scaling on Head Rush now as well.
Yep. And
that's a weird one. Something that I do want to point out before we go any further on it, because I think that these patch notes, while they do a really good job getting the data together, sometimes the way they word things is not very good. So the way that Crimson Curse works is that she has 0 to 50, now 0 to 40 percent extra healing from all sources, including other champions, for example, based on how much health she is missing. So if she's at half health, she'll have 25 and now 20% extra healing on any heal she gets. This new effect is increasing basically for every 4,000 bonus health she gets 1% extra healing per 1% missing health. So let's say she had 1,000 bonus health.
Why don't we simplify this? How much health does she need to get the old effect?
Let's see. She needs to recover 10%.
Because that's what people are going to be really thinking. How do I get back to net neutral and then actually start getting something?
I don't know if there's an actual number for that. It's every amount per 1%. 4,000. Oh, she would need 400 bonus health, I think, actually.
Well, 400 just gets 0.1, correct?
400 is 0.1%. See, that's the whole reason I brought this up. Is 0.1% extra healing per 1% health that she's missing.
So she would need 4,000 to get 10%?
4,000 would give her 100% for every 100% of her missing health. No, that is incorrect. She would need 400 to break even.
Well, it can't just be 400 because she can get that on like one item with some of this stuff.
That's what it is. Yeah, they're trying to encourage her to not build lethality anymore.
But 400 is not even 1%. It's 0.1%.
That's 0.1% for every 1% health that she's missing. This is why I'm saying that the notes are written poorly here. The bonus healing 0 to 40 is based on 100% of your missing health.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So it's really 2.5% per 100 bonus health is what you would equate it to for the line above.
So this is actually a really huge buff for like a bruiser build. So
yes, it is.
So you can get way over the old 0 to 50 with this now.
Yeah, the lethality build was what was the most ridiculous, because she'd jump on you, and, well, if she were fed, you'd already be dead by the time that you were out of her initial, like, CC from her jumping on you. But then she could also stick to you and keep healing because she was dealing so much damage. They're trying to encourage her to go bruiser. This is a buff overall to the champion, but just the fact that they are pushing her away from the lethality build, I think is going to make her less oppressive.
Oh, that's interesting. I have a couple of friends who have been playing her a lot. It'd be interesting to see the difference.
Yeah, she doesn't bring a lot of utility to the team per se, but she's just such a good, I don't even want to just say duelist. She can 1v2, 1v3. 1v4 is hard, but she can 1v2 or 1v3 pretty easily.
I feel like she's been pretty obnoxious with the support champs, and obviously I play a lot of Shen, so the Shen moments have been pretty funny, because I have a friend who plays this, and I've played some Shen. So there's been some hilarious moments where she's pretty unkillable.
And you take certain things on Shen where you're also healing her.
Oh yeah, I run the most cheesiest of Shen builds ever created by
Yeah.
man.
I love locking in Soraka when I see a Briar on my team. Screw Grievous ones. The Grievous ones don't even do enough.
All right,
And she lives so
last
long that they just turn on me.
last thing I want to mention is now our Q will apply Sheen and other shenanigans, so that's
Oh yeah,
definitely
that's
an
pretty big.
interesting thing to take into account. Now it's more than just her W auto attack.
Yeah, and lifesteal as well. For a champion like that, that's big. So yeah, more of the story. Go Bruiser on Briar now. You will be healing like crazy and living forever.
That's
Uh,
actually just
I,
how I thought she was intended to be played from the get go. I was like, this is just
I
like a
think she was intended to be.
teenage Warwick,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
You know?
If Vex wanted to be Warwick, yeah. I agree with you. I think that was probably the intent, and they were surprised that lethality ended up being so oppressive on her. Yeah, and I probably not, but just for the sake of silliness, do you think that unending despair will ever become a core build on her since she is living so long now?
Well, with the way her passive works, she'll get more out of the periodic heal. So if
Uh
it
huh. Uh
favors
huh.
the comp and she's in the middle of a lot of people with Spirit Visage and stuff, it'll still be really good. I honestly
Absolutely
think
fucking
that thing
crazy,
is
right?
secretly like really good. You know? It's one of
Yeah.
my favorite. It's my favorite of the new items. I'm trying to stay
I
positive about all the stuff I hate.
I went,
So
I went against a Zac one game that went full tank mid Zac, 1v4'd us in the mid game when we were just all wailing on him. And we all died and he survived.
yeah, I've had
And
some hilarious moments where it's like my only damage item. It's pretty fun to use.
yeah, absolutely just straight up ran that game. Everybody else on his team was just getting stomped. And he just carried the entire game as a full tank with that stupid item. I was like, oh, tanks are so broken now. Mages can't do anything to them. But no, like even when I've tried on Ending Despair, and every time I've seen it since, it's definitely been good.
I'll say
But
this: it's a very
it wasn't
lackluster
that level
item.
of growth.
It's a
It
very
wasn't that
lackluster item to build like first or second, though.
I think he built it second.
You really gotta be like
You
far along
definitely
in
need
your
at least
build to
one
get a
item
lot
like a
out
heart
of it.
steal or something first.
Oh yeah, I built Heartsteel with it like
Yeah.
every time.
But I think Unending Despair is a good second item. Like, like by that point in your game, you're getting a lot of damage out of it, and a lot of the other people's items aren't really dealing through it. Dealing with it, dealing with the amount that you can damage them or the amount that you can heal. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm sure Briar probably wants something with an attack damage stat, but besides that, Unending Despair, with how long she's going to be surviving now and sticking to people, like, you can't get away from her. You can't get out of that Unending Despair's zone.
All right, that's enough about Briar. We got different
Fair.
takes on this champ. Can't dwell too much on it. Next up, we've got Camille, which is someone I've actually been playing a little bit since they brought back the old Titanic Hydra, which does have like a bizarre, like really efficientness with her Q. Makes it really silly with the attack reset and
Is
stuff.
she better this season now?
Well, I mean, there's no way she's going to be as good without Divine Sunder because she would
I was gonna
convert
say, she
the
lost
entire
that.
yeah, she'd convert the entire effect into true damage, which was
Uh-huh.
ridiculous. But this is then having an instant attack reset is definitely the next best thing for her.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think she was even good with Divine Sunder.
Oh no, dude, she was good, dude.
I consider her to be in dodge territory in solo queue. A good Camille
You
can be very good.
you're right that she's basically only played by like Camille mains because she's very intimidating for like casuals to play. You're absolutely right about
I see a
that.
lot of people try to play her and just fail miserably and
She
ruin the team.
yeah, it's because she's
Um,
difficult to play because she's
yeah,
like a scalpel and not a club. So you know,
yeah. She's a very good duelist, but like she's just awful in team fight. She can get there and cause a stun and cause some chaos if she's ahead. But yeah, she's basically a pretty good duelist and really good at split pushing and escaping after she's split pushed. But if she gets behind in that solo lane, there's nothing she can do for the rest of the game.
that is true. She's not very good from behind. That's
All
very
she does
true.
is go in and get burst.
She's very
Uh,
bad from behind.
yeah, I mean she's like a Jace that doesn't even have range.
I've played her a number of times, and she was something I tried to pick up in the past. And the
Yeah.
lower cooldown on the passive is definitely very fun. It has been buffed a few times, and the increased access to like health through the durability update, the addition of Heartsteel, has made her passive actually a lot more impactful. You get like a pretty big like magic or physical shield out of it that's pretty funny sometimes. And you can even run Revitalize if you want to get extra stupid.
You think the low rank movement speed on Precision Protocol is also going to be a big help to her, or not really?
It's definitely a big help because anything that helps you connect an additional auto attack, especially when her second form of her Q is the true damage thing that scales with levels instead of rank, anything like that is going to be a powerful thing because she's all about auto attacking and weaving in like attack resets and stuff. That's why Titanic is so good on it again.
These seem like some nice buffs. I mean, more survivability, more movement speed, and like you said, make it easier to weave in the autos.
It's not as good as Divine Sunderer, but she basically does the same thing with the active component of Titanic Hydra, where she converts the active component's physical damage into true damage. So, and you can still always build Trinity Force. It's not like you have to, get stupid on her. You can still
maybe this will take her out of dodge territory and put her closer to just bad champ territory. We would like that.
With how often it feels like her shield comes up, she is pretty competent in the 1v1 against squishies and other tanks and stuff. So.
Oh yeah. And then I think about squishies, right? Is she can get a lot of range on that hook shot to run them down.
Yeah, the Q cooldown gets very low in the late game, so you're pumping out the true damage second Q very consistent. So.
All right.
Okay, next up was Cho'Gath, and this is probably a change you should have. What?
Is this worth talking about?
I mean, kind of. It's probably something he should have had 15 years ago or something, where he just has a higher cast range on his ultimate the fatter he gets, which kind of makes sense, and I'm surprised he didn't already have that.
Yeah, it's probably 2.5 per stack, even if he's getting 15 stacks, 40 range is nothing. But yeah, what this probably is you can chomp people a fixed distance from your mouth as Cho'Gath or something like that.
Well, this is fine. An ability that's otherwise essentially melee, it's definitely a good thing.
Yeah, but how often are you getting 20 plus stacks?
You don't need 25, you just need 10.
Oh, they're not even giving you anything past 25 range.
10 is super easy to get.
Yeah, but 25 extra range on an ability is nothing.
If he was already ranged, I would agree.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not mad at this change, right? It's a quality of life thing. It's fine.
All right, next up we've got Darius with a kind of a revert when they nerfed all of the sustain in the game. This is how much his old Q used to heal for. Still, even with that in mind, looking at it, it still just sounds ridiculous. But at the same time, you got to kind of realize how hard of a time he has in team fights and stuff. How hard it is for him to trigger his passive and stuff like that. Looking at it, though, it is just silly. And yeah, the armor pen, just so silly. But this is kind of the tools he needs to be like that 1v1 side lane threat.
Yeah, I couldn't exactly tell you why, except maybe that tanks got so much benefit from items. But it seems like several of the champs that are appearing for buffs on this 14.2 patch are juggernauts. We see Darius, we see Garen later. I think Mordekaiser got some buffs too, I forget. But we usually don't see him getting changes. No, it looks like I'm wrong about Kaiser. But anyway, yeah, really nice buffs to Darius here.
Yep. I actually think these are just figures that he did have in the past on both of these.
And I will say that Darius, not that I'm even decent at playing him, I try once in a while, and I feel like I'm the world's only bad Darius player.
You would be.
Yeah, I would be. But yeah, I found myself often running out of mana with him. So I would actually buy a sapphire crystal in lane sometimes.
As someone who's played a lot of Darius, I've played a lot of Darius pre-rework and post-rework. He didn't change too much. The only way you can run out of mana with him is if you're just a silly dude. because his skills are very cheap.
I'm a silly dude then, because like I found a way to do it all the time.
You even get the mana back on his W if you last hit with it. I mean, you got to be kind of silly to run out of mana.
Like I preface this with, I've got to be like the world's worst Darius, but yeah, to have the mana cost reduced, will feel nice for chumps like me.
I'll tell you what you do have in common with the Dariuses. They're all so used to being so insanely aggressive, they will never ever realize when they don't have enough mana to use their ultimate. And they'll just do all their abilities, and they're like, what? I don't have 100. I know they're so used to all of their abilities only costing like 20, 30, 40 mana, and they're like, what? I need 100 for the ult? And they'll never pay attention to their mana bar.
Should have bought that sapphire crystal, asshole.
That is like a universal constant with Darius, I'm telling you. They never know how much mana they have. Okay, not really a hugely consequential change to Evelynn. You don't really want to shred the small monsters anyway. Let's move on to Ezreal, who is probably the biggest buff in this whole patch, and this is pretty monstrous. But at the same time, I actually think it's very well deserved. I'm old enough to remember when his Q only had like an 80% AD ratio, and every like 2 or 3 years it's boom 90, boom 100, boom back to 90, boom 100, 110, 115, 100, now it's 130. This thing is just, I think, what is it, season 14 we're in now? They should have just made it 140 just for that, Every year they just raise it by like 10%.
Every year they give them 10% more AD.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's funny.
At the jokes aside, though, I actually think if any AD carry was to get buffs to kind of compete with like the pressures of time, I do think it should be Ezreal, as I firmly believe he's the worst AD carry in the game, in the late game, and he's not a hyper carry. He's terrible against tanks. He just doesn't scale really well. I don't really think he's overly dominant in the early game. He just has a different play style. And he just has a really hard time contributing against all of the hyper carries, or even some of like the ability-based people that are supposed to be kind of his contemporaries, like Lucy and Corki. Even they kind of outperform him. So Ezreal's kind of in like this unique spot. I've played a lot of Ezreal in the past, and he always just feels difficult to contribute with in the late game, because the game has accelerated at such a speed that he just doesn't have the time to do your 56 Qs.
As an ability-based ADC, he's not going to be able to contribute as much against tanks, and obviously, like I said, tanks got a lot of help in 14. And particularly, they got a lot of help with their magic resistance, and I mean, what ADC does more damage, magic damage, than Ezreal, besides maybe Corki? So, I can understand why it would have been hurt last patch. But these are some huge buffs. I mean, 40% more bonus AD ratio on his Essence Flux, which only has a few seconds cooldown late game. As well as more base damage and 20% bonus AD on the True Shot Barrage. A little bit more on Mystic Shot. That 40% on Essence Flux is huge. And I think this is really going to push him into some more like AD heavy builds, whereas now he builds a lot of different stuff. He'll build the Essence Reaver, he'll build the... he'll build like Sheen items, which he'll probably still keep building. But he'll build a lot of different things. Sometimes armor, sometimes health, sometimes just like utility. And I don't mean team utility, but things like Sherelda's Grudge, that that are more about like bursting shields than about just dealing straight damage. He has some weird builds where he can work a lot of extra things in. And Ezreal is the type of champ that he can fire at people so often that if you keep hitting those skill shots, and given that he can keep himself safe, like he can contribute a lot over the course of a long fight.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Not as quickly as someone like Vayne or Tristana or Kai'Sa can. Certainly not. He needs to be able to do that over the course of a long fight. But I think this is going to push him into some new interesting builds. I don't think this is going to have him go lethality, because most of his skills are still dealing magic damage. So even though you have these great AD ratios, the lethality will not help your magic damage. But I think it's going to push him into probably more classic ADC items that have a lot of AD and some attack speed and critical strike on them. It may even push him to some of those like tank fighter like AD items, the ones that give like a lot of AD but not attack speed or crit. and might give health or resists as well. That might be the new build for Ezreal, and then he will really be able to survive the course of a long fight and try to contribute. Yeah, this is huge, and I think he's going to be an S tier ADC on this next patch.
I don't think he'll ever be an S tier AD carry without a rework. He's definitely going to be better.
He's definitely good at times.
He's still going to be in the same position, just slightly less so. And as for opening up some new universe of items to build on him, I also don't really think that's going to be the case. You're still going to want to dump like a ton of ability haste and like the mana mune and the what the hell? Yeah, Essence Reaver and all that stuff. And you're going to want to build one of the slow items and stuff like that. And now you can build a lot of this stuff before where you couldn't stack all of these things sometimes. I still think basically the old blue build is what most people are going to do. And since you took Divine Sunder out of the game, which is something a lot of people were fond of building on him.
So Essence Reaver is a Sheen item, right? Or no?
Yes, it is. Most are going to either build that or you're going to build Iceborne Gauntlet still.
Right. That can be your slow item, but maybe that's what he'll go now more than the Essence Reaver.
Well, it was acceptable to build Iceborne Gauntlet on him before when it had no AD on it, and it still has no AD on it, and the stats are probably better, and it's cheaper than it used to be, because now it's basically a support item.
Right. All reasonable. But I think you're going to be looking at, for Ezreal, you are going to be looking at items with a lot of AD because these ratios are great.
Well, you can still get like almost
fluxes up every few seconds.
I agree. You can still get like, almost 400 AD on him probably with relatively conventional stuff because Muramana will give you like 110, which is crazy. I don't think it's going to change his build. And as far as crit goes, I'm not seeing that happening because if you're trying to actually use auto attacks on this guy, you probably don't want to do that.
Yeah, attack speed is okay on him, but he's not a crit champion at all. But that's why I'm saying, with these big AD ratios, normally you'd think classic marksman item. I think he might start going for the fighter items, which do offer a lot of AD as well as survivability. Just my thoughts. I think that his current builds will continue to be fine. It's just very, very hard to actually get it done against tanks with his current builds. You would only want to use those into squishy compositions.
Yeah, as long as you have Muramana and one of the Sheen items, I think you're basically doing everything you can do. I think if you throw in Bork in there, which applies on his Q, is pretty standard as well.
Yeah. Bork was a pretty standard item to help him get through some of those tanks, but I think with like these big AD ratios, I think you maybe see less Bork.
Yeah, thing is, he kind of needs the Bork. Basically, you just want to build all the items that apply things on your Q, because that's kind of his whole reason for being.
Yeah, that's fair. The on-hit on the Q means a lot to him.
You want the Sheen, you want the bonus damage on Muramana, you want the Bork, you want the whatever the fourth thing I'm forgetting is.
Yeah. All right. Let's go for Fizz.
All right. This is the beginning of a really disturbing set of changes that I saw this patch where a number of champions now have their abilities actually do damage to structures, which is definitely going to be annoying in the split push game, which is already more annoying than it can possibly be. Mostly I'm talking about Jax, who is going to just explode into next level aggravating
I'm sorry,
split
Kirsty,
pushing.
I can't hear you over the sound of Jax whumping on a turret.
Yeah, what they were smoking. It's changes like that where I'm convinced that they just want to like destroy this game. We'll get into Jax when we get there, but what they did with Jax is just like so stupidly clueless that it's just like I don't even know. And he already can get through turrets kind of quick, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, giving this to Fizz though, I don't think is the biggest deal because at least he's like a mage and stuff, and he doesn't attack.
Fizz isn't the kind of guy who stands at a turret and attacks it 14 times.
Yeah. Urchin Strike getting a bit of a nerf isn't a huge deal. The base numbers on it are pathetic anyway. It's mostly just to apply his W and Lich Bane. and whatever other stuff he's packing. That's not the biggest deal. The nerf on the Seastone Trident, though, this is kind of more of his bread and butter, part of his damage component. This is a little more bad, but at the same time, so much of Fizz's damage is so like uninteractable and bursty and snowbally, and he has such great ratios that he's going to be perfectly fine even with all this stuff. He is one of the most like snowbally and uninteractable like champions in the entire game.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you just said. And AP Assassins got got a lot of help in 14-1, and probably didn't even need it that badly. So I was surprised that they decided to target like a couple of the champs rather than the items, but that's the way they went about it. And while I don't think we have too many other AP Assassin nerfs this patch, I think we're going to see them in the near future. Champs like Diana and Echo probably also having some of their power rolled back. Having Fizz have his W rolled back, I couldn't be happier about that. Like, just bleeding out to a Fizz after you try to interact with him and he just walks away and laughs at you is one of the most frustrating things that there is in League, besides maybe getting killed by Zoe. Good riddance to it, and I'm glad that's where they decided to trim back his power.
Okay, next up we've got a good change to Garen here. Good for him, I guess. I play fair. I know this is one of the few things you actually play top. I play a ton of Garen too, and of course the big reason this is so good is because you're basically forced to max courage last if you want to be like as impactful as possible. So having this at 4 seconds at all ranks is definitely probably more juicy than eventually having 5 seconds of it at level 18. So this is definitely a very good change, I think. And then a little more icing on Judgment. Well, you know, that thing can already get pretty silly, so probably should have just kept it as the courage buff.
Yeah, this is double the duration of damage reduction for most of the game, and only becomes a drawback once you get to level 17. And yeah, I mean, just all this extra early power between the courage and the judgment is great for him. Like I said, Juggernaut seemed to have been struggling a little bit compared to the Uber tanks and some of the the annoying range champions in top lane. And so they're getting help, and this is definitely going to help Garen a lot.
Yeah, he's already kind of like a lane trading expert, and this is going to make him even more brain dead to like leverage.
That's why I play him.
Trading with people in lane, because now that he doesn't even have to have half as good timing on courage now to time it to negate damage as much, this is just going to probably put him over the top to some degree, I imagine.
I don't think this is putting over any top. Like I said, Juggernaut's, not as good as having a Cho'Gath top right now.
Damage reduction is a very powerful effect, and doubling how long you have any damage reduction is very powerful in the early game and scales very well. I'd probably
rather have Darius than this guy. And don't get me wrong, Garen's a fine champ to have.
Oh, no, I'd much rather have Garen in the late game. Garen scales way better than Darius does.
Oh, please. Darius just dunks everyone and your team wins the fight.
Darius is, like, terrible in team fights. It's super hard for him to turn his passive on, and if he can't activate his passive, he does not contribute in team fights very well.
He just gets in there, he pulls in one person, slices him down, and just as the other team is about to kill him, he spins in a circle and he has 48% of his health back.
You're right, he has a lot of sustain, but that's not really where his power comes from. His power comes from getting his 250 bonus AD from his passive.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't turn that on...
Well, often you can turn that on. He just kind of runs from one target to another, like especially Ghost Darius.
You can't do it that way. You have to get max hemorrhage stacks on one person.
All right, he runs to one person. He pulls him in. He gets the stacks on that person. He slices them with his R, and then Ghost refreshes. I think it stopped refreshing a few patches ago, right? On takedown.
Yeah.
But it still has a very long duration. Runs to the next target. Just absolutely friggin' runs them down. It has things like Dead Man's Plate and whatever. Like you can't escape.
I hear what you're saying, but I think you have a wildly high opinion of how consistently easy it is for him to trigger his passive.
I think it's easy.
It's very difficult for a champion with no mobility.
Yeah, and I'm not saying he has more than you think just based on items
He
and
actually has none.
summoners or whatever, but he has none in his kit, but he has lots of items that give him nobility. He has lots of items that he buys that give him
I
mobility,
hear what
like
you're
things that
saying.
work well with what he's
Yeah.
already getting. Yeah. Um, it's not like being like an Aphelios or something like that, where none of the items you have can help you like achieve mobility that you don't. But yeah, I'm not saying it's easy, but I've seen him be a monster in late game team fights so many times, and I'd rather have him in the late game than someone like Garen or someone like Mordekaiser, who are also fine to have in the late game.
If it's like a super like long team fight or something, yeah,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
or Darius tends to clean up. But like
Uh-huh.
the later this game ages, like the faster these team fights go, man, because the
Yeah.
damage just keeps getting crazier and stuff like that. And
No, you're
Garen's
not wrong about
damage is
that.
just so much more easy to land, and it's more consistent and unavoidable. And he just
Mm-hmm.
contributes
With
way
the silence
easier,
and
way
all.
faster, and he's just way tankier than Darius. So you know. And he just doesn't really have to build as much damage as Darius does to contribute basically the same amount. Darius
Pretty
has to
nice buffs
index
to
into
both
like a
of them.
lot of damage to do well.
Pretty nice buffs to both of them in this patch, I'd say. And now
Okay.
another fat man, Juggernaut.
Yeah, we got the bonus damage to the structures again. I really don't like seeing this. Hopefully they don't put it on something like Diana or anything like that, or her. Maybe she
Oh,
already
yeah,
has
that
it.
would be beautiful. Or like Echo. Oh God.
Yeah, that would be nightmarish.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really hope they pull back on this or make it like 25 or 10% or something, because I feel like they're kind of introducing this X factor into the fragile balance of which champions are good at pushing and which champions are supposed to be bad at pushing. So I don't like
Yeah,
where this is going.
I always felt like like that the whole point of like sieging a tower should be that you have to attack it a lot of times and not that you attack it once with an 800 damage buff on it. I don't even think that like a Nasus stacks should apply against towers. I've always found that kind of stuff to be unfortunate and kind of stupid.
Well, that's
I see
just an
why they
auto
do it.
attack.
Right, right. But
These are abilities.
sorry?
I said that's an auto attack modifier. These are like abilities that are not.
Yeah. I'm saying they're pushing it even further in the wrong direction. I'm kind of agreeing with you here.
Yep. I hate it. I hate anything that speeds up the game.
Yeah, I just think that if the point of towers is that you have to spend a long time there and risk the enemies coming at you, trying to flank you while you're on their side of the map because you're ahead, why are we making it so easy to get around that? So it's not the biggest deal in the world to me. I would much rather them add 50% damage against structures to 10 more abilities and take out Hullbreaker. But
Oh God.
but I still don't like to see, like you said, more damage, like more free damage against towers. That's a little silly.
Well, they got rid of the cancerous element of Hullbreaker, so now I don't really mind that item anywhere near as much.
I still think it's really cheesy, especially like combined with the Void Links.
Yeah.
Especially combined with the Void Grubs and the bonuses you get against towers from those. Like it's crazy.
All right, next up we've got Gwen, who has a small buff to her passive, which feeds into her Q, her autos, and her ultimate. This probably isn't actually that small of a buff. Basically, any buff to her passive is a massive buff to her whole kit. She's already pretty nightmarish in the late game, even with all the nerfs she's gotten.
Yes, this is 0.72% of their maximum health per 100 AP that you have.
Yeah.
On each basic attack and damaging ability. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
pretty nice. Gwen to me is the better version of Camille.
Oh, dude, you can't even compare the two. Gwen is like mindless.
I would definitely compare the two.
Gwen is like she is a blunt object. I think of
Who is
her as
playing
a.
bullies that are good at like using one skill to avoid enemy fire.
Gwen is like AP Fiora. That's what I think of her.
Oh yeah, Fiora's another one. Fiora's another one.
But I think
Camille
even
right
Fiora has
before-
to be more mindful than Gwen does. Gwen just has so much like sustain and so much like health shred.
Fiora is one of the most like delicate and skillful champions in the game.
I agree. It's very difficult to play in the early game, at least.
You always have to be really, really conscious with your positioning and your distancing with Fiora.
Yep, I've been trying
Gwen
to
not
pick her
as
up
much.
the last 2 years.
But yeah, nice buff, and probably experiencing some of that same Juggernaut problem that that Garen, Camille, and Darius have had.
All right, next up we've got Hui with some buffs here, specifically a buff to his all of the cooldowns on his Q rotation, which is pretty impactful considering the Lightning Bolt's pretty good, the obnoxious Wave Clear on his QE is pretty good, and just the flat out Karma Q basically is pretty good.
Yeah, higher fear on his Grim Visage as well.
I gotta be honest, I barely ever see someone use that.
Yeah, I don't see it too much either. What are the alternatives to
you
that
always
one?
want the scoop, the little claw that sucks everyone into the middle, or the fangs.
Oh, true, because then you could like proc his passive so many times.
Plus, it hits more than one person, so honestly, you really never see anyone use the eyeball thing or the line skill shot. You always see the AoE grab thing.
This is good for if you're trying to get away, though.
Yeah, but if you just position the Fang thing, it basically does the same thing.
What have you thought about Hui since he's been out for a few patches now?
I still think what I originally thought. I think he's a very balanced champion. I think he's strong when he's ahead, but I think that's true of most of the mages. I don't think... I still fervently don't think he's 1v5 status like you were telling me when he first came out. I think that's preposterous. He's basically like a pretty good...
late game, you don't believe that?
I think he's a lot like Lux, Xerath, Ziggs kind of type. What did you say about the late game?
I said even like ultra late game, you don't think he's Aurelion Soul status?
I definitely can't say he's Aurelion Soul status because Aurelion Soul scales infinitely. So that's ridiculous comparison.
He scales extremely well.
And there's a ton of mages that can like obliterate someone full build in the late game. So I don't really think he stands out as like 100 to 0 potential, because you got things like Annie, Victor, Lux. I mean, they can all LeBlanc, they can all blow your toes off.
Lux is usually doing that to one or two champs, right? Like Veigar, can wipe people off the map and off the earth, but is usually doing that to one champ. Hui does it to 4 champs, but he is also very very vulnerable and easy to catch. I think of him almost like AP Aphelios.
I guess so, just because they both have a bunch of like abilities. Otherwise, no.
A bunch of abilities, and also like they both have the ability to just take out a whole team if the other team doesn't play it right. With like just a couple of skills in the late game.
I mean, if everyone's standing right next to each other and they're all half dead, then he has great wombo. That's true.
Yeah, a lot of ability to spread, and I think that's Aphelios' like best point as well.
I mean, that's like one really great interaction with his Inferno ultimate. That's definitely true. That's why he got nerfed a couple times. But no, I don't think Hui is as exceptional as you think he is. I just think he's really good.
No, I would actually agree. I've come around on that a little bit. I don't think that he's as much of a game health or balance problem as I did when he came out. I actually enjoy having Hui in my games on either side. I just wish that they'd smooth his power curve out a little bit.
The only thing that's obnoxious as fuck now that I've laid against him several times is that QE wave clear is so stupid. It's like it's like Echo, where you just like whoop, there it goes, and there goes the wave. I mean, the wave clear these days has just gotten so silly that any champion before like 2018 is basically just pushed into their tower the whole game.
Bring back Banner of Command, I say.
It's just it's really obnoxious. They probably should reduce the damage it does to minions by to like 75% or something.
Cool. If they had like a banner of command that the minion would gain like resist and power based on how many allies were near it, so it wouldn't be a split pushing thing, but rather like a team siege thing against this great wave clear.
One of the reasons they took that out of the game is because it was also immune to magic damage.
Right, well, that was something that they added very late. Like, for most of its life, Banner of Command didn't make it immune to magic damage.
No, I don't think we need to add goofy items to fix the wave clear. I just think it needs to do less damage versus minions. It's just too strong.
Think, like, teams should be able to siege a little bit more easily against wave clear.
Well, that's a whole different problem. I'm talking about, like, the laning phase.
Oh, sure. Like, yeah, laning phase, I don't think we need to change anything with that. But I think it would be nice to be able to protect minions against wave clear when you're trying to siege. I guess you gotta kill the wave clear instead. But yeah, speaking of things that got killed, poor Illaoi. Man, have you seen any Illaois this patch? Because it's sad.
Yeah, that probably has something to do with the goofy way that they changed the map, I imagine.
It's the terrain, of course. You know, of all the things that they did consider, and how it's going to affect the jungle, and the lanes, and the way that people path through the jungle to get to fights, I think they forgot to consider how it's going to affect Illaoi, and her tentacles just can't grasp onto walls where there's going to be multiple tentacles hitting an enemy at once. Pretty much anywhere on the map now, except maybe in pits.
Well, here's the thing with Illaoi, and a few years ago, I did make a big effort to pick this champion up for a few months, just because I felt like I try to pick up like 2 or 3 champions every year, or re-pick up some stuff. And Illaoi was like my project in like season 7 or 8 or something like that. And the thing is, yes, in the laning phase, it's like going to be more annoying because the walls are more spread out than it is. But when it comes right down to it, she only really needs the 2 or 3 that she can get very consistently just by hitting the ghost and the person under the ultimate. And then if she's in the 2v1, she'll always get 3. So if she always has 2 or 3, her ultimate is always going to be very threatening. So the fantasy of getting like 4 or 5 or 6 tentacles is just kind of delusional if you know how she functions. So it's a nerf on the laning phase, but as far as her like tedium of an instant, like a constant split pusher is concerned, she's still going to be doing all the same annoying things.
I mean, top lane laning phase means more than it has in a while, and in addition to that, there's a little bit less, there's a little bit more room, a little bit less claustrophobia in the rivers now. And, you know, what you're saying is all true, but it also means if she misses that E, she is screwed. Whereas I think, you know, you go back before 14-1, if she misses the E, she's going to be at a disadvantage in 1v1, but if, like, multiple melee champs come at her, she still wins that. And that's harder for her to do now. So, yeah, as much as these are some nice buffs for her, I think she's still going to be a pretty underpowered champion until they give her more.
The most I'm willing to say is she will be worse. She won't be underpowered because she still has the like retard checkbox ultimate where she'll just obliterate you if you don't respect it, and that hasn't changed.
Yeah, a lot of people just like swarm into Illaoi thinking they're gonna get her and are very, very surprised. My friend Leo always says the people don't know the counter to Illaoi, which is just walk away from her.
Yeah, that, or just be playing a ranged champion, which she has a very hard time against. I'll never remember the time where, when I was playing her, and I'd already kind of pretty much mastered her, and I was playing her top, blind pick or something, and this guy picked Draven top against me, and the amount he shat down my throat cannot be understated to this very day. This guy played, Draven top against Illaoi, pretty damn good still, man, I'm telling you. It's a good counter.
And that's the story of how shit always comes out of Chrissy's mouth.
She has a very hard time with ranged champions. So.
Yeah, she does. I always tell my teammates in solo queue if the Illaoi ever like you know gets 2 kills early because the fucking like Nocturne went up and tried to gank her and she doubled them. I might as well just have it on the macro for those games. Let the range deal with Illaoi.
Yep. All right, next up, it is Jax, and this is
Wah, wah.
yeah, like I was already bitching about earlier. This is gonna put his split pushing into like the next dimension, and people kind of already only play him one way to begin with, and that's like suicide trade the first few levels and then just spend the rest of the game split pushing, which is also just how people play every champion top now. So I guess he's not that much of an outlier. But
Yeah.
with this extra power on not only his W and his ultimate, and I'm probably
Uh-huh.
just stack, so yeah, this is just going to be extra stupid. Plus, he's always running a Sheen item, so that makes it even crazier. So yeah, this is
Okay.
just silly.
And we
Yeah,
did take
sure,
some
he
damage
lost.
off
Yeah,
the
he lost
right?
some damage on his E, but the fact that that
Uh-huh.
ability does damage is kind of an after effect or
Yeah,
an
yeah.
afterthought.
It's
I
not
mean,
about the damage that it deals,
yeah,
but in fairness, like, if he's losing more fights, he's not going to be able to get to the turrets as often.
yeah, but his expectation isn't really to do damage with that ability. It's to like create
Completely
fresh.
agree. He's doing tons and tons of damage if he has items with his Q and his W already, and those are on like a 3-second cooldown. He doesn't need the damage on the E, but I don't know. Like, I don't see why they had to do this in the first place, but at least it's probably not a big like total power buff for Jax.
No, this is a buff probably. I mean, his utility spell that did need to do damage got nerfed, so what? His split pushing prowess and the pressure he's going to create just went through the roof. So this is definitely a buff. For him specifically, because of how much he autos. The other ones not so much
Sure,
because they weren't like
sure.
dedicated auto attackers.
He's going to be able to proc that a lot if he has free time with a tower. I just think if Darius, with all the buffs he got, is matching him, Jax is never going to get to the tower.
Oh no, Jack shits on Darius like after like 15, 20 minutes.
I guess he can, but again, like the Darius should have won the lane against him.
I don't know. If you're smart about Jax, his early game is a lot like Fiora's.
I'll tell you this: I'd rather take a Darius into a Jax than a Garen.
I guess it depends on what your like late game expectation is. If you want to be really tanky, I'd be happy with Garen. But if you want someone that you're like convinced is going to dominate the lane, I guess you'd be better off with Darius.
Uh-huh.
In the late game, Darius is going to have a much harder time with the split push, that's for sure, than Garen will. Garen is kind of just laugh it off, especially if he has Warmogs or something. So.
He does love laughing and then doing handstands. So what is this with Jace? It's saying they increased his knockback, but it no longer has a fixed displacement location. I
So
didn't understand this
basically,
one.
the way this works is I don't know why it was always coded this way, but since he came out in this like
Uh-huh.
8 years ago or something, there was this little. If you probably never noticed this, it's hard to notice because it happens really fast. But basically, this little shiny thing shows up on the floor and behind his target, and when they're in the process of the E animation, they'll always appear at that spot after Thundering Blow finishes, which basically gave them displacement immunity. So now they've removed the displacement immunity, so it never really should have had that. So now he can be like head butted, pulverized, all kinds of goofy shit, Dragon Strike while he's like knocks someone backwards, basically.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Before it basically worked like Poppy's ultimate, you could compare it to, where if someone's inside Poppy's ultimate, they can't be displaced till they land.
Right, they kind of just get knocked up slightly. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
So
cool.
that's it. Increasing the knockback distance is also pretty good because
Yeah, you're gonna like this next one.
that's more safety and that's more like gank potential, I suppose. Yeah, I've already let's go on to Karma here, and yes, I was very happy to see some of these nerf reverts. I've already enjoyed a few 1500 HP shield Karma games. I already have a fiendish build where I give someone big crazy ass shields. It's been a lot of fun. Now that you can stack some of the mythics and you can put like Moonstone on the same stuff as like Ludens and other crazy wacko shit and stuff. It's been a real good time. The only thing I'm afraid of is this is gonna make people come back to my secret weapon of mid karma, and she's just gonna.
Oh, they're gonna say top lane karma.
She's just. Oh, I never did that dumb shit. Even when Kleptomancy was in the game, that was always stupid. She's a pretty good mid laner. Her damage is just so consistent, and she's such a safe laner, a lot like Lulu. But
Winter's actually good, yeah.
Yeah, it's good, but I found out it's not as good as Waze. So, yeah, this is awesome. I mean, now her Q does like 105% AP ratio with her ultimate, and her shield is also like 105. Funny how they both ended up at that. But those are like outrageous numbers, and it's just been a real good time the last couple days that I've been playing her.
Yeah, and with the base health increase, plus the fact she can build a base health rune, plus the fact that she's got this this decent shield at the beginning, like even just as a support, she's gonna be very, very hard to kill early on.
Yeah. Also, I don't know what runes you like running on her, but ever since they added Ultimate Hunter, it's just been absolutely bonkers with her ultimate because of the way her ultimate functions and the charges and system.
Yeah.
And then that new item, I forget what it's called. It has like 20 haste, and then silly enough, it also gives 20 ultimate haste. It's the one that makes your ultimate leave the little circle of crap on the ground. That reduces.
Oh, is that Malignance?
Malignance, that's right. Yeah, that's been absolutely bananas on hers because it basically just gives her ultimate 40 haste. Absolutely bananas. I think it's mandatory in like every Karma build.
Does it? Can you actually proc its effect with Karma?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, they count the RW or RQ as hitting an enemy with your ultimate?
Yep. Sure does.
Nice.
Yeah, that's
I know
been
that
bonkers.
I thought that was going to be a really good item on like Swain, because I thought that like every time his ultimate procced, it was going to do that, but it seems like it only works once. Yeah, there's some weird interaction.
That was probably smart that it only works on the blow up part of his ultimate. That would be stupid.
Well, it makes it just useless on him. Like, I was hoping they were gonna like give him like the little like small explosions every second or something like that. But, but either way, either way,
people that build it don't have the leverage of having an ultimate that does like periodic damage or is on a super low cooldown.
Forever, yeah. I assume like quirky it probably every single hit, right?
Yeah, it should. If you're one of those people.
I mean, you got to be one of those people. There's no other way.
You shouldn't be one of those people because he's still a great AD carry if you build him straight up. So that's just
anyway,
low effort silliness.
Karma, very nice here. There's always been like a trade-off between Karma and Lulu, right? They do a lot of the same things in slightly different ways.
Oh, make no mistake, Lulu's better.
Well, I think Lulu's been better for the last couple of years at almost every point, but I mean, with these buffs, I think Karma might take the crown back from her.
It's just a question of peel, basically. Lulu is always going to have incredible peel. Karma's going to do more damage. It's pretty much the gist of it.
Yep. Karma's going to be better at chasing as well. But yeah, like with these buffs and with the fact that she has a Dreammaker, for her support item, which I would think would normally be the go-to for her, right?
That's the one that does the max health damage?
No. Dreammaker is the one that gives you your ally the 2 bubbles.
Oh, yeah. Well, I feel like most support Karmas would just want to index into the poke, so they would get the other thing.
You like the ZZZZZ mag thing?
Well, the thing is, I never player support. I've always been like a mid Karma, so I'm getting the big ticket items, boy.
Okay. But that is a support item, right? Like, we're not even talking about what she's going to build mid for a support item.
I think most people would just see her as like a poke support, like Morgana or Brand, and if you're doing that, you're going to want the health shred thing. Just makes her more annoying, which is the whole point of a poke champ. So
I think of like mage supports like Brand, and even to some extent Morgana, to be about killing, not about poking. Obviously, they can do both.
Well, damage is damage.
Sure. But Morgana, like, I always build the ZZZ thing on her. But I'm never, like, I'm always like building Morgana for the long game, whereas Karma I'm building for early and mid power.
That makes sense on support. With mid lane, I feel like with the extra access to all the more gold, I feel like you really have some aspirations to either have a hyper damage build or a hyper utility build that's absolutely preposterous the way I do it.
Either one
that
can be
Moonstone
good
Renewer is so absurdly silly. It is so much fun.
Oh, yeah, because if you have a lot of AP on Karma, and especially with this 60% AP ratio, Moonstone is just buffing that even further.
Yeah, that 600 AP Ultimate E with Runestone, oh my god, it is so absurd. God. It's like a Shen ult every, 5 seconds.
Say, she's female Shen.
And I do the same thing on Shen, and I can get his ult to 3K.
We know you do the same thing on Shen. That's all you ever talk about in these patch notes.
Well, you know, until I see someone else doing it, I'm going to keep bragging about how busted it is. It's hilarious, man.
Enough about Shen. Let's talk about Karthus.
I'm still salty they took Radiant Virtue out of the game before they made it a legendary. That would have been icing on the cake. Okay, Karthus, we got some juicy buffs here, especially the Wall of Pain. More MR, so that means after he dies, he can drop it on someone's face, and then ultimate. That's probably the whole reason for being. It's kind of during a fight, it's kind of hard to combo it with your ultimate. Of course, you can do a bunch of Qs and stuff, but you know,
yeah.
I feel like
that's more the purpose for it. It's also slowing people down. Sorry for interrupting. So that you can hit the Qs. It's a great combo. WQ.
Yeah, any buffs to Karthus I feel are pretty warranted. I sure as shit don't want to see him in the jungle again, but anything that'll get his ancient ass out of back to mid lane, I'm definitely for. So
mid lane or even APC or support, I'd like to see him sitting at more.
I really just don't think he's good enough to take the farm bot with the way his damage kind of comes out. It's really hard for him to kind of interact with all the fast. You would need
the right team around it. Yeah,
you just need to be too good at him to make it work in bot lane. Mid lane, I think if you're playing against something slow like a Nivea or something, or Azir or Viger or something.
When's the last time you've seen an Nivea?
That's what I'm saying. It's all the last several years. It's like all you ever see mid are like assassins. It's kind of annoying.
I genuinely don't know if I saw 3 Anivias in all of Season 13.
It's like the same thing top. It's like, I just want to play against another tank. Well, sorry, it's going to be some fighter that all in you. And if you're mid, it's like, I just want to see another mage. Well, sorry, it's just an AD assassin.
Karthus is the type of champion that's supposed to be able to, burst down a squishy in the right situation, obviously make a big, oomph impact in the team fight after he dies. But also to be able to eventually, by repeated use of his Q, be able to eventually take out a tank as well. And I think that with some of the great magic resist tank items from last patch, that was becoming impossible, and that's maybe why they decided to give him some help here.
I still think he's a long way away from being like a consistent threat outside of his ultimate, you know.
I don't know. With a lot of AP, if he gets even somewhat fed, it's shocking how much health a Skittle takes off of you.
Yes, but it's kind of the same like Ezreal's symptoms, where if you have to use one ability 10 million times in the speed of the team fights, I mean, it's kind of just the way the game is now. Things are so fast that it's hard for him to get in his his chips.
But even if he uses it 4 or 5 times, gets a few people low, right? Then he dies and ults. And,
but the thing is, with all the movement speed in the game, it's hard to consistently hit people, and you have to hit them by themselves, or it doesn't do nearly as much damage, which is also another complication.
Yeah.
If almost feel like at this point in the game, they should just lift that to where it just does full damage all the time. It's not. It wouldn't even be that crazy strong with the way Karthus operates. You know. You basically have to run exhaust on him just to have a shot at 1v1ing somebody.
You know? Oh, man. What if you had an Anivia Karthus lane? That could be pretty crazy.
Yeah, that would be fun because, they wouldn't be trying to, get up in your grill every 5 seconds. They'd probably just be content to farm and reminisce about the old days.
We came, we saw, we reminisced about the old days.
All right, who do we got next? Let's go down to...
a lot of just bug fixes, I think.
We don't have to talk about that one. Let's go all the way down to... Rumble. Yeah, okay, let's talk about Rumble. All right, we got a slight buff on the Q. They didn't touch the max health damage, so that's nice. The big takeaway... He lost some of its MR shred on his Harpoon, but to be perfectly honest, as someone who's played a fair amount of Rumble, the numbers on that thing are pretty insane, actually. So I got to be honest, this was probably warranted. Now, I know later we'll talk about the hot fixes when we get there and stuff, but
this is important to mention now, I think.
Yeah, they simply increased the ratio on Harpoon to make up for the MR shred he lost. I say that, I mean, at the end of the day, he had so much insane MR shred on his E that it's like, I don't know. I think it was actually pretty warranted.
Yeah, with the prevalence of Tank's top, the fact that he is actually one of the few majors and range champions that can just easily shred through those great MR items, and the fact that he can just deal consistent damage over and over and over and over to harass these these tanks that are appearing there so much.
Yeah.
Rumble's real weakness is if you can close the gap on him and then damage him pretty quickly.
Let me stop you right there. Here's the big problem. Rumble isn't very popular, and I think it's for one reason. You don't see a lot of dedicated tanks up top lane. As someone who plays a ton of Shen, I am telling you, man, it is wall-to-wall, like all-in fighter-esque bruiser types. I would love to play against another tank. It's fun. It's relaxing to play against another tank. And the thing is, Rumble is really bad against like the fighters because his damage is kind of slow, and they all in you like really fast. Rumble's really good against those tanks because they need like a few rotations and stuff to like do their damage, you know?
All right, so are you done talking about Shen now?
Well, I'm just comparing it because I play a dedicated tank and everyone else doesn't. So
right. So I guess we're actually in vigorous agreement here, as that has been Hillary Clinton would say. We've got Rumble being very good against tanks and pretty poor against fighters. And I don't know how much Rift you've actually played on 14.1. I know you've played a lot of ARAM in the last patch. But
actually, I've played a pretty fair amount now.
Yeah, tanks are back on the Rift. Like, we see a lot of tanks there now. We see a lot of different things, but we do see a lot of tanks. And the reason for that is all those cool new MR items. So Rumble was one of the few champs that doesn't have a problem bursting through those pretty quickly. And I think that's why he was very strong and got some nerfs here.
Okie dokie. Next up, we've got... Hey, we got this buff to Shen, and this is definitely something you can feel. It's not every day a champion gains 4 base attack damage. Usually you just see like 1,
3 or 5,
0.5, 2 or something like that. But 4, man, this really ups his threat in the early game when you always get those 3 auto attacks off on his Q. And if you're a cheese lord like me, you hide your Q in the bush, so it's always behind them, and then you start at level 1 with the enhanced Q, and you basically chop them in half right at level 1. It creates so much pressure from the get-go. So an extra 4 attack damage is actually super impactful at level 1, and it's nice to like push in last hit too.
Yeah, for all of the landing phase, and really for most of the game, like and maybe less so some of the burn items, but a lot of his damage is coming out from the auto attacks, slowly over time, but he gets to do a lot of them. So this is nothing to be sneezed at.
Yep. All right. Gonna skip the new
Smolder
dude
until later.
And now we've got some Teemo action. We've lost some speed on the Shroom generation here. That's a crying shame. And I know that this was changed in the hotfix too. They actually were going to...
The nerf on Toxic Shot, I think, was changed right back to 30% AP.
And not only that, but they buffed the flat damage as if to completely be like, nerf? What are you talking about? We want a big buff.
Yeah, right? This was strange. My guess was maybe originally they were putting him in the same kind of class as Rumble, as being able to bully some of the tanks that are appearing there now.
I definitely don't think he's very good. He's just annoying. He's not very good. He's just annoying.
Exactly. And he doesn't have the type of shred that Rumble does. So I can see why they decided they really couldn't nerf him as much as they wanted to. I'm happy to see fewer shrooms though. Like that's one of the stupidest forms of wave clear in the game.
I wish they just used it for wave clear. That's actually like easier to deal with.
It takes a little bit of skill to actually run people into traps.
Yeah, but they're also free wards too.
I'm sure. You know, I don't think that's their highest and best purpose in like silver.
Well, he has no mobility, so I mean he moves fast, but
He moves fast, but he doesn't have escapability really, right?
all right. Next up, we got Trundle, and this doesn't look like much, but you remember how much I freaked out when Tryndamere gained like 75 bonus attack range? This is kind of going to be online with that. And
this is 25 for only his empowered attack. I think this is fine. This
but
is like a Cho'Gathar.
Oh no. This is way No. This is way more impactful, dude.
Is this even the thing that slows you?
Yeah, this slows you too.
It is. Okay. So this is impactful.
This is super impactful in the early game, and his Q has a really short cooldown the entire game. And if you've played any amount of Trundle, you know how many times he's going to reach like across the minion wave to like get that auto, and then the Q is an auto attack reset. This is actually secretly going to be super fucking annoying to lane against, because he's always going to... It's just like Tahm Kench, who has one of the longest melee ranges of a melee champ. This is going to make him super annoying to trade against. It's actually a pretty impactful buff.
Okay.
Oh,
you think he's been doing well recently?
Oh, Trundle? No, Trundle's super annoying the way some people build. Trundle's one of my favorite blind picks, but I tend to play him like with like Grasp and pretty conservative, and I'll do things like my only damage item will be Bork, and then I'll just build him straight tank. The way I see most people play him, they'll run like Lethal Tempo and then just build him like all damage, and it can be really annoying because he's one of the toughest champs in the game to 1v1. And he doesn't really have to build a lot of tank stuff to be difficult to take down when his ultimate's up, so he can be kind of frustrating when people build him like super split push cheesy.
You want to talk about what happens when Shen plays against him?
The thing is, Shen is...
I was kidding, let's move on. Twisted Fate.
Shen's really good at not taking a fight if he doesn't want to, because of the dash, the shield, and the dodge. Really good. Okay, this Twisted
really
Fate.
Yeah,
this is basically just a... What do you call it? A license to troll. This is what this is.
I don't know about that. I think this is like a legitimate effort to move him to being a totally different type of champ.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I feel like they didn't go far enough to give you a big enough... Now, there's a lot of incentives here. There's no doubt about that. But the thing is, let's break this down. Like, yeah,
I've seen true ADS work.
Any champion that's ranged and is fed enough is going to be able to build AD carry and be able to get away with it. So I don't think that's a good enough argument. This isn't a good enough scaling on his Q, honestly, to make it as useful as AP, because this is a pure like lane clearing tool. If they really wanted this to be good, it probably would have needed to be like 120% of his like total AD or something. 50% bonus, it's going to be laughable in terms of like keeping up with it versus AP. So if that's supposed to compete with his AP build in terms of wave clear, that's a joke, just straight up. Now let's go to pick a card, and if you know the scalings on all these, and this finally got buffed like pretty hardcore for his AP build the last couple of years, to where you actually can respect what this champion does. Whereas for like 10 years, I mean, his full rotation was so laughable, you never would have to respect Twisted Fate, particularly in the laning phase. And the thing is, the base numbers on pick a card aren't really high enough for the multiplier of building Critical Strike to be super impactful. Not when you consider the AP ratios that this is going to compare with.
Yeah, so I think it's more about like just giving him the ability to use some of the crit strike items and not lose out on them as much.
If they really wanted to help him, they should have gave him like a unique modifier with critical strike chance, like increasing the stun on gold card by like 0.25 per 33% critical strike chance or something like that, or increasing the slow on the red one by its critical strike chance, something like
that.
That
would be interesting.
Just multiplying
The amount of mana you get back on the blue.
Yeah, that too. Just amplifying the base damage by its critical strike chance is really not very impactful whatsoever.
With that said, like I think importantly, they're giving him a lot more bonus attack speed on his E.
Yeah,
and
this
I think
is
if you're gonna go an ADTF, right? You're gonna be you don't need as much wave clear because your wave clear is your autos when you're an ADC.
That
your
is
wave clear
true.
Is your abilities usually.
You're right that the stack
Yeah.
deck on his E is by far the best change here, and
60% is about half of Tristana at max rank, I think.
60.
I think Tristana is about 110%, 120% bonus.
Yes, it's definitely over 100. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice and all, and having the damage scale, this is similar basically to like Nashor's Tooth. This is actually probably an impressive scaling because this is actually turning his stack deck into kind of like Draven's Q almost, except it's way better, obviously. And this stack deck only gets consumed like every 4 or 5 autos. But even that being said, this is definitely the best part, but I still don't think it's that great.
Get, the one thing we slept on, I think you also get some more gold for every minion kill if you have some crit. So yeah, I could see maybe like going like one crit item to start with him, and then going into more like attack speed on hit type of items.
Can you maybe I'm like I'm really stupid or something? Can you explain the passive thing to me? Like,
yeah,
is it simpler than it sounds? I don't know.
Probably. So you know how he gets like 1 to 6 bonus gold every time he kills a unit?
Yeah.
For all intents and purposes, means every time he kills a minion. So now, basically, let's say he has 30% critical strike chance. There's a 30% crit chance, 30% chance that he will also roll another 1 to 6, but this time it'll be weighted towards 1 instead of 6. So he can roll like a 4 and a 2 with a 30% chance instead of just a 4. Yeah.
Okay, I guess I didn't understand what that meant. Okay, well, if you have both those things triggering at the same time,
100 gold throughout the game. If you get like one critical strike item early, it's not bad.
That actually is pretty good, and there has been a serious clampdown on like additional gold generation like the last 10 years in this game.
Yeah. And with games ending earlier, like you don't get to the 6 item full builds quite as often. So like the fact that he can get there more will be nice. Let me just say this, like I always thought that it was weird that TF had an auto attack buff at all. He seemed like he was like a I don't know that I want to say a burst mage, but a mage of some sort. Kind of like a pick mage, if you will.
Just a ganker, basically.
Yeah. He never seemed to me. It always seemed to me like stack deck was an artifact of when they threw skills onto champions, not really thinking about whether that particular champion needs that skill or not. You have a lot of the old champions that are designed kind of like that, and I always thought they would eventually get rid of stack deck and the troll builds that tried to use that to make him into like an auto attack champion. It is strange. Not bad, but strange to see them going the other way and saying, we really want to support this build.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some more juicy things here, but the amount I would dodge if someone played this bot cannot be overstated.
Yeah, I'm willing to give this a shot. I think it might be better than you think. Like having an ADC that has an on-command stun and an auto attack steroid is pretty nice.
If someone did an ARAM, I'd be like, okay, people do it with the old TFs, and he didn't even have scaling.
I'd be willing to give this a chance in ranked, like whether it's a mid ADTF or whether it's bot lane substituting for a marksman. I can think of a lot of worse things.
Oh no, this would be even worse than mid lane if going AP probably. Bot lane, at least you'd get like a better chance of getting the farm because you have the support. With mid lane, the amount of aggressive things, and that was always his problem, how bad he was in the 1v1. With the aggressive things that go mid now, and how he's going to have even worse wave clear, with the Q not having any
Not
AP
worse
on
wave
it.
clear. They gave it a bonus. Oh, you're saying if he goes AD, he'll have worse wave clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, your wave clear is your auto attacks.
Yeah, I'm telling you, but auto attacks are way slower than sending a Q in a straight line and hitting all every minion at the same time.
I suppose so. If you're going ADTF, do you go EWQ now or do you go WEQ?
I honestly don't know. I guess if you're banking on winning everything with auto attacks, I guess you want to get your E rolling. At least it has the full ratio at like rank 1.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if by if by level 6 you already have 35% bonus attack speed and you can roam. I don't know. I think that's valuable. You'll be able to clear the waves with all that attack speed.
yeah, but every other mid laner can do that faster.
Not necessarily. I don't think so. And certainly not all of them can do it safer. Don't forget that he's also going to have his red card, to help out with that.
Yeah, but his red card is only good when he had AP. Now it's increasing the base damage, which isn't that great by his crit chance, and he's only gonna. I mean, it's only increasing it by like a third, and that's if he has 100% crit. It sucks.
Yeah, another thing is going to be fantastic, and they might need to give it some further buffs to really solidify it, as this is his build now. But I do see this as the place where they are taking TF with changes like this. Like, this isn't like we decided to throw some love to the to the niche build. This is, we want to make TF into an AD champion.
I wouldn't be surprised if he. I actually am surprised he hasn't been reworked yet, to be honest. Kind of has kind of a dated ability set.
But no, I don't think he needs a rework that badly. Like, he's a fun champion. They finally, over 12 buffs in the last few years, have finally made him not suck.
I don't think this is going to make him better. It's just going to make his playstyle more volatile. Because he's going to go from being a burst champion, essentially, when he's AP, and he actually has some promise with that now, to a champion that's going to have to take a lot longer to do the same amount of damage. And, he's not known for being, what's the word?
Consistent?
I mean, he's not going to go in there and then get away or stuff, He's like, he doesn't have a dash, he's not fast.
What's interesting about the timing of this is that TF was a big Everfrost user, and they got rid of that last patch. And I feel like part of the reason maybe his AP builds were working were because, first of all, the mana from Everfrost, but second of all, the fact that he would actually be able to burst people with the amount of time he gave himself with Everfrost, plus the gold card.
Or the incredible buff that his Q and W got.
Well, those were all needed, but I think even those buffs, right, without Everfrost, he may not have enough time to actually complete the burst. He can maybe half health them. So, I wonder if that's maybe why they decided, without Everfrost, APTF won't work and we have to take him in a different direction now. This may be an act of desperation rather than opportunity.
I think anyone playing this champion is a little desperate. I don't think he's very good. Even with the buffs, he's just less bad. He's still bad.
I think he's average. I think he's average, honestly.
And he's extremely difficult to play in the late game.
Sure. But he's extremely easy to play in the mid game.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah.
Not really. Basically, all the new stuff pushes faster than him. He can't win a 1v1 to save his life, so he's stuck trying to roam, but he's pushed in constantly. He's just got a lot of bad things working against him.
I would bet on him against Hui in lane every single time.
What? Hui has way better wave clear than he does.
I mean, wave clear wise, sure, but TF will just kill him.
What? Hui's damage is way more consistent. Not to mention, Hui has way better range than Twisted Fate.
Hui doesn't have the type of damage that can get out and actually like one combo TF in the mid game. Anyway, I guess we'll have to agree to disagree about Mr. Fate.
Okay, let's move this crapola along.
A little buff to Vagar. Nice to see.
Yep, and then we got the same thing for Trundle with Volibear. This is his Q. This is also probably a big deal considering he kind of has to touch you with this to get you with everything else.
This is the stun. Yeah, this is big.
Yeah.
You know, he is a juggernaut and was probably struggling the same kind of way that Darius and Garen were.
Yep. Okay, I guess that does it for
Finally
the
did
champs.
Alright.
Don't really want to talk about the jungle pets. I feel like they've made jungling so easy and effortless that basically any champ can pull it off now.
Yep, we don't need to talk about it too much. Just to say slightly better healing and slightly better damage against objectives.
Cool. Alright, why don't you explain how they've made gold harder to get for some reason with this thing?
Well, one way they did it is today I was playing Leona and I kept auto-attacking minions with 3 orbs. Like my whole team was looking at it. And the minions would not execute, and when I killed them, they would just give me the gold. And when I would hit enemy champions, it wouldn't give me anything, so I had to actually run up to a tower and auto-attack it 3 times to use my orbs. But, what is this? Minion gold penalty now accounts for all champions that have a quest item, instead of each individual user.
I love socialism.
I don't know for sure, but the way I'm understanding this is that if 2 people have the nerve to both buy a support item, and take too many, and you know how like if you have a support item and you take too many minions, you start getting less gold.
Yeah.
It seems like that single count applies to the entire team's total among people who have support items. So if 2 different people have support items, each minion that either one of them takes will count towards the minion penalty cap.
Oh,
You know,
I was
where
hoping
like,
that wasn't as dumb as I thought it was. Boy, do they want to clamp down on this meta.
Yeah, I haven't seen any games where I've seen multiple people on a team build support items, but maybe that happened once in the pros or something.
Probably some crazy funnel shit.
That's always the thing that I'm most scared of. Like, multiple people having the sight stone. And understandably, like, the game is built around having a certain amount of vision. But man, if there is a hill that Riot will die on, it's that, there should be no circumstance in which 2 people on a team can ever have the support item together.
Yeah. They hate.
Alright, Bloodsong, which was really good, way better than Even Shroud, is still better than Even Shroud.
Yeah, this was probably to be expected with what they did with Even Shroud before it got removed.
This is fair, right? Like, I'm sad to see it, but this is very fair. Like, Bloodsong was an extremely good, final support item for really any melee champ that wasn't all about damage.
I like to take this time to say I'm actually happy with the direction that they took all of the support items. I feel like you finished them at a really good time for theirs to be effective. And I like the kind of Omni style they went for, where you just get one thing and you can last hit or you can harass, and they all upgrade into like something useful.
Even the range champions at the beginning get the execute on all minions, which is such a quality of life feature. I love it. Did you come around on all the final support items having the same stats?
I mean, I'm not going to cry about it. I do think some of them are kind of dumb. The fact that there's no longer any AD or any AP, I think, is kind of silly with some of them. So
Sure, but all the
They
extra
could,
damage from the ZZZZ one like makes up for that.
yeah, they probably could have just given them like some adaptive shenanigans, and everyone would have been just as happy.
I wouldn't have hated that. But I do like that you can just choose game by game which effect you want the most. I still wish the effects were a little bit more interesting.
Honestly, I
Uh,
feel like there's some the best ones they've done, and several years ago, I really
yeah,
liked the state of the support items, and ever since then, I've kind of hated them for the most part, and I'd rather just selfishly build AP stuff because it feels better. Now I feel like these are accessible enough, and you get to the final version fast enough to where I
uh-huh.
don't feel as bad about getting them now.
Yeah, they feel nice. It feels really nice to complete that support quest. Get your 1,000 gold. You no longer have orbs, but now you have some type of cool extra effect. I agree with you. It's timed well. It's timed well in the game. They said I remember reading the a little bit of the design thought behind this, and they said that they wanted to make the final support items kind of a 1.5 item power spike where that is the point in the game where the support can have the most impact on the game. So like the jungler will be really early, and then the support, and then the solo laners, and then the ADC is kind of I think the path throughout the game of like who is the most like meaningful person on the team at any given time. And yeah, I think they did a good job with it overall. Only complaint is I just wish that the effects on some of the support items were a little more interesting.
Yeah, you gotta have expectations with support items. They're basically always going to be garbage.
Hey, fair enough. Fair enough. Um,
Okay, next up, Death's Dance is a little bit more. Let's go to Experimental Hexplate. I haven't really seen many people build this one, to be honest.
yeah,
Just
it's
the
like
one
who
that has
wants
health
this?
on it.
Like,
Yeah, health
yeah,
and attack speed is kind of a rare thing. Not a lot of champions are going to want both of those. This is the one where you move
right,
fast after your ultimate, if I'm not
right.
mistaken.
Well, so if you're finishing a combo with your ultimate, it's like then you probably don't want it either. So it's like who wants this? Darius, absolutely. Kled, Riven, maybe.
Yeah, it's
Um,
not a big roster of stuff.
yeah, and probably not even Riven because it has no ability haste on it, aside from your ultimate. Um,
We probably could
yeah,
have kept Divine Sunder, and they can take back Experimental Hexplate.
I'm very happy that Sunder is gone, but yeah, experimental hexplate found itself in a weird place. I think we even said that when we were reviewing it last batch. Um, yeah, Darius Kled. I'm not coming up with too many other champs that want those stats and use their ultimate to before they're going to be like launching a lot of autos. Vayne maybe. But Vayne really needs the attack speed and the crit, right? Like, I guess this has attack speed. Maybe Vayne could use this? I don't think I've ever seen it on her.
When I play ARAM, I always play Tank Vayne because I like to prove how stupid her W is with no AD and no crit, and it's good.
Do you play? Do you still get attack speed items on her?
All I get is Ginsu's because it makes her W proc more.
Wow.
And
Okay, that's
I
funny.
just go straight tank because I like everyone to see how much she needs to not have true damage max health on her
Back when
W.
they had a Nemesis mode, and do you remember that mode?
Vaguely, I don't think I tried it.
That was where you picked your opponent's champions during the draft. And I
Oh,
would always try to get my team to pick the other team 5 auto attack ADCs, and we'd all build Thornmails back when Thornmail was good. And one of the other teams caught on and started giving us like 3 or 4 ADCs from that point in the draft. And so I ended up playing full tank Corki that game because the team needed a tank. We won.
I actually think 5 AP champions is weaker than 5 AD champions.
Um,
Physical damage tends to be a lot more consistent than magic damage.
this was back when it was harder to itemize magic resist though, and also again when Thormail was really good, and we specifically didn't just pick 5 ADs but 5 auto attackers for the enemy team.
Alright, next up we got Frozen Heart, and this
Mm-hmm.
needed a way to become less accessible, so now it's 100 more gold, Same with Guardian Angel, except people actually like that. 100 more gold for that.
Uh-huh.
And anything, let's go something interesting. Riftmaker, 100 more gold. Feel like there's been a big down surge in people buying that item now that it doesn't give Omnivamp right away, which is kind of the point.
Right.
And okay, let's talk about Storm Surge.
Stats are some of those battle mages, though.
Yeah, which has been the opposite of Riftmaker, a very popular item as soon as it came out. Storm Surge got nerfed last patch, or hotfix nerfed, and now it's getting nerfed again. This thing is pretty crazy, I guess.
Yeah, I called it. Remember, like I was saying, it's so much better. Just like the numbers on it were insane. Not the concept, but just the numbers were so much better than Luden's or anything else that it would compete against.
Well, it's good in a different way. I still think Luden's is very good. This is just a burst thing, whereas Luden's things comes up more often.
And they took off almost half of the squall damage here. Like, this is pretty big.
I gotta be honest, this thing is basically like having another Keystone almost. So pretty good. I'm surprised it still gives money.
Oh yeah, that's true. I'm surprised. Like that's somewhere you'd expect them to take off some of the extra power.
Yeah,
but I guess you're happy about that, right?
It felt very tacked on. I feel like if they wanted some ancillary stat that give it something goofy to do, I feel like giving bonus money is not the way.
Yeah, like maybe have to give you another like 20 AP for 15 seconds or something.
Let's see. They could have just gave it ability haste, because I'm looking right here and it doesn't have any haste. So I would have probably preferred that, because ability haste now feels just awkward to stack on AP champions now.
Yeah, like I like their idea of like we're not just gonna like splash 10 ability haste onto every item in the game. And even mage items, like you should be making the choice between lots of AP or lots of ability haste. But I really wish that they had one or two like premium ability haste items for mages. That's what they're missing in that entire like well-intentioned rework.
Well-intentioned, my ass.
It's well-intentioned. The road to hell is paved with good intentions too.
True
but
that.
no. I think that they actually were almost there, and the big mistake was, they only left like a few like premium ability haste items anywhere in the game, and most of those were for like AD users and other weird things. Like have a couple for mages, have one for supports, and yeah, I think they'd have like a pretty good. I gotta say, like I've been pretty happy with the state of the game in 14.1, especially compared to the trash fire we had last season. After the freak item rework.
Bro, at some point every patch you're like, I'm really happy with the state of the game.
I look, I've been getting more and more bitter about the way that the league has done its items specifically. In the last year or so.
You're definitely not the kiss ass you were when we started this series, like 10% less.
I think they really, they gave themselves CPR with 14.1. I really think so. They gave themselves mouth to mouth. They're breathing again. There is a pulse showing, and it wasn't perfect. But I really think that in a lot of ways they hit, and they just need to adjust the power and look for a few places, like with ability haste, where they kind of just left a niche unsatisfied.
Okie dokie. On to Stridebreaker with got a nice
Storm
little...
Surge is a really cool item, though.
What'd you say? Storm Surge?
Yeah, it's just a really cool item. I'm happy it's in the game.
It's okay. We got $100 less on Stridebreaker and a little bit more attack speed. I haven't seen a lot of people build this since they removed the damage component. I don't really think that's why people bought it though, but regardless, I haven't really seen a lot of people buy this. They've been wanting probably to combine other items that used to not be able to build together since everything became legendary again.
You still have like your Garens and such that like to build this.
Getting a crazy speed up when you hit a bunch of people with it is hilarious, though.
Stridemaker, more like.
Yeah, I'm honestly surprised they even gave it that like auxiliary effect. It is pretty funny.
Yeah. And I just want to point out on this, even though we don't usually hit bug fixes, this is hilarious. If you're one of the people that found the bug with Jack Show the Ornn upgrade, the Unspoken Parasite, giving you 25 permanent ability haste just for having the item and not taking away anything. Hey, good on you. Hope you enjoyed it while it lasted.
Well, I just noticed the other day that Moonstone still had its mythic synergy.
Oh, the more legendaries you bought, the more it gave you of something?
I forget what it was. Oh, maybe they've changed that one like 5 times. Was it just haste, or was it ability power or something?
Well, no. In the past, the mythic was every time you used a skill on anyone, you would heal the nearest allied champion with a 2-second cooldown, and then they made it just while you're in combat, you get more heal and shield power each second.
That was before they reworked it.
Flashy item.
You're
saying that? Yeah. I think I misunderstood you.
Yeah, let's just move on to the ruins. Sure. We're going to go with unflinching. Now this actually does something that's kind of titillating. Now you actually get some armor and MR when you get... This? Well, I like actually seeing something that feels like it could be confused with something else that's tangibly useful when a moment that you actually need it. And getting tankier right after you get immobilized sounds more useful to me.
Yeah, so 10 armor or magic resist is going to mean you're taking maybe 3% less damage, and only when you get immobilized.
Yeah, but it has no internal cooldown, so...
Correct. You could theoretically run it forever, but again, it's 10 armor or MR. Nothing to write home about. Taking a few percent less damage, I would have much rather been immobilized for 25% less time so I could get away as a tank or someone who's going to use unflinching. This, to me, is a nerf. I don't think I'm ever going to want to use unflinching now.
Can't really call it a nerf if it just does something different.
I think it does something, not necessarily strictly worse, but objectively worse. There will be situations that 10 extra armor or MR are better. But,
well, if you were something
there will be a lot more situations where not getting slowed, not getting silenced, not getting feared, not getting bound... not getting stunned, for 25% less time, is going to be a lot more useful.
Yeah, I don't think you're really viewing this through the right lens, though. If you were something that was building like Merc Treads, and then you also were running like Legend Tenacity, and you were also running Unflinching, then yes, this is a nerf. But if you're something that's running Defensive Boots, and you're also running Conditioning, and you're also running Unflinching, then this is more synergistic. Yeah.
Sure, but well, not necessarily. It's actually less synergistic because this is not 2 to 10% more. This is 2 to 10 flat armor and MR.
Yeah, I get it. I'm not saying it's big.
Each point of armor or magic resist is going to mean a little bit less than the one before it.
I didn't say it was a big thing. I just said it's more useful if you're going a tanky build instead of a tenacity build or whatever.
Yeah, well, tenacity, you don't need to opt into that build per se. Sometimes just one tenacity item is good because it stacks multiplicatively.
Yeah.
So the first 20% brings it from 100 to 80, but the second 20% brings it from 80 to 64. Which is still really nice. But each time you stack a tenacity item, it'll become a little bit less effective than the one before it.
All right, let's move on to a really thing.
This is really interesting.
Yeah, this next part really upset me. I really hate what they did with this. And everyone knows what a big fan I was of the rune pages.
Let's explain what it is first.
Okay, so basically, we lost the defensive stats, and in place of that, we got some health, some flat health, some scaling health, and then some movement speed instead of whatever the hell the other one was. And tenacity on the bottom thing. Now, I hope you agree with me and don't try to sell me on a bunch of math mumbo jumbo, because I was explaining this to Johnny.
What I do, Chrissy.
And Johnny didn't seem to think this was a big deal until I explained to him the implications of what this would mean in the early game, and then he was like, "Oh, that does sound like it would be kind of impactful," and stuff like that. And so basically, the way this functions is every champion in the game only starts with like 30 to like 34 MR or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if you can never itemize early on armor or MR, if someone just rushes like, and I'm going to think this is going to take a big uptake in popularity, if someone just rushes Sorcerer Shoes, they're going to be doing almost true damage to you basically, because now you don't have the extra bonus MR, which is more impactful earlier, like you said, because of diminishing returns, to offset that. And the same is going to be true, but not to as outrageous effect for Serrated Dirk, because it's also flat now, and lethality got buffed this season because it's
lethality doesn't scale anymore. It's a full armor pen.
And it's absolutely silly to think that 60 health or 10 to 180 health is going to make up for what you're losing in the very early game. And this is definitely going to be something that gets leveraged like the first like 6 levels of the game, when the pen is going to be much more noticeable because no one has basically any starting armor MR anymore. I think this was an absolute like textbook case of a brain dead design decision.
Okay, I will disagree by half. In the first part of the game, you also only have about 600 health in the first few levels. And so, you know, the difference between, let's say 34 armor and 40 armor, means that you're taking, all the damage, done to you is being divided by 1.34 instead of 1.4. You're taking about 4% more damage relatively. And because you're getting, let's say you take the 65 flat health rune, you're actually getting about 8 or 9% more health. It actually means you have more survivability, you know, in this cherry-picked, like, level 2 or 3 case.
You're focusing on the wrong thing. It's not...
Well, let me finish.
Okay.
I do agree with you that as you scale up into the mid-game around level 6, that's probably where not having the bonus armor or magic resist against a certain type of damage, right? Like if you know you're going to be going against a lot of physical damage, they have like a physical top laner and a physical jungler. That 6 armor is going to do a lot for you at that point. If they have mixed typing, you know, you were probably going to have to just build the magic resist runes and then start going into armor with your items anyway. So in that case, the health is actually going to mean more to you. I'm less concerned about that. And what I do like about this is that I no longer need to go into my rune page before every game and switch if I had to resist between armor and magic resist based on what champs the enemy has.
Hooray! Low effort buff.
If there's actually like a tactical change that I want to make in terms of, you know, wow, I'm really playing for late game this game. Let me change from 65 bonus health to the 180 scaling. Or, wow, they have a lot of CC. Let me change it to tenacity. That's an interesting decision to make, and it's something that you might do in 5 or 10% of your games. But most of the time, you'll be able to just, you know, pick something that is good for your champion and leave it. Because health is good for every champion in the game except perhaps Soraka. And you know, Soraka will always use the tenacity rune because that'll be really good for her.
This wasn't about...
Yeah.
I don't think you're seeing the true downside. This isn't about the breakpoint for where 6 or 8 armor MR is equivalent to the 10 to 180 health or 65 health. The point is, if you always have less than you've always had, someone's first like purchase of Sorcerer Shoes or Serrated Dirk is going to reduce you by much more than you would have always otherwise had, which is going to be much more impactful otherwise.
I agree that's a knock-on effect. I agree that's a knock-on effect. In fact, I don't think it's a huge deal though.
It is definitely going to be a huge deal. I wouldn't be surprised if you start seeing like professional people just sit on an early cloth armor and null magic mantle for like half the game just to make up for this. And particularly who I see losing out on this the most is particularly 80 carries, and particularly 80 carries that end up laning against like a mage or something. This is going to be so insanely silly against people that don't gain any extra MR and can't really afford to build any. Which is going to be all melee champions gain MR per level, all ranged champions don't.
There is nothing wrong with sitting on a basic like resist component for half the game. There is nothing wrong with that. And now that mythics are out of the game, you don't need to race for that first item with a huge effect. I think that's not only a perfectly legitimate strategy, but a very healthy one. The idea should be you shouldn't have to commit to 3,000 gold to itemize against a certain type of spike damage, and you don't have to. And I think something like this will actually encourage people to do it more.
The only thing I like about this is that you can goofishly run two 10 to 180 health things on Shen. Because it scales
Man,
with his ultimate
I've gotta have like a swear jar for you. Every time you mention Shen when he's not in the patch notes, I just make you throw a quarter in it.
Well, that's the only
You
scenario where
rich.
this is really good. If you're playing something that just wants to stack a bunch of health, suddenly you have like another 180 health to play with.
Kogath,
For
right?
all the
Yeah.
squishy champions, I feel like this is going to really mess with the math and be
Really
stupid.
good with Heartsteel users.
Yeah, exactly. And I wouldn't be surprised if they really overcompensate for this change in like the next month.
Yeah, honestly, like 6 bonus armor, 8 magic resist. Like it felt like bookkeeping at the beginning of the game. I think they're offering more interesting and intelligent choices to make here, and I like that they moved bonus movement speed and tenacity into this little like stat section. I remember when Celerity used to have like a few. I think it was maybe 3 or 4% when it came out, bonus movement speed.
It used to
And then it
give you
also like
attack damage based on your bonus movement speed or something.
yeah, and then it also made the movement speed bonuses more effective or something like that. But anyway, yeah, like they worked that down to 1% over time, if I remember correctly, and it just felt so useless. And to just have like a flat 2% movement speed for the champions that want it as an option as a minor rune, I don't know. I think this is pretty cool.
What would have been cooler is if they just added a fourth and fifth slot and added all of this crazy utility stuff in, and then you could have just decided, yeah, I would like movement
I
speed,
wouldn't hate that.
tenacity,
I wouldn't hate that.
bonus, a second set of health, or maybe like 2% spell vamp or lifesteal or something. I don't know, or
Yeah, I
something
wouldn't
like
hate.
that.
Oh, you really want those Omni Vamp or Spell Vamp like runes back.
I'm just saying,
Yeah,
there's a lot of
you
room
love
down
those.
there for them to have more than these three stupid ass things.
Sure, sure. But like for what it is, I actually do like this. That's interesting. So you liked the new unflinching. I think it's complete crap, but you don't like these new rune shards, which I like.
I'm not saying it's good.
Uh,
I don't think it's super impactful. It's just something more tangible, I think.
all right. Do we have anything else that's important before we hit the new guy?
Just the
Oh,
riff.
ability, yeah, the double ability haste on the Infernal Rift. I actually really like these cinders. They don't make a big impact in the game, but just running around and trying to collect them, the movement speed boost that you get has saved me a few times, and then has also helped me gank people a few times.
Unfortunately, I've only gotten to see this once in game so far.
And it's really fun to not only get a shutdown, but to also like watch all the cinders pop out of them and you take them away. So to make the ability haste on them even better, like I like this, and I think they did a good job with the new Infernal Rift. I hope they do something cool with the Ocean Rift.
Alright, let's quickly go through these hot fixes since this patch is taking 10 million years and we still have to talk about the new champ.
Uh,
Alright,
we're
first
talking about
off, we've got
go on.
some nerf to Brand, especially his jungle clear, which was way too fast.
I just played against a Brand in the jungle a couple hours ago. Um, he eventually like got some power to him, but he got smashed. Like we won the game. I don't think Brand's a good jungler. I don't see why. I I've done this lecture before. Like he doesn't have the tools he needs to be a jungler, no matter how much damage he can do to monsters. So whatever. I think the percent health damage over time on champions is a lot more important.
Sure is. It's kind of his whole reason for being. Alright, next up, we've talked about Requiem. Or not Requiem, we talked about Rumble.
Requiem for a Dream, baby.
Talked about Rumble. They buffed that to compensate for the Shred. And then we talked about Teemo that they just did a 180 on. And that does it for 14.2. And then last but not least, we're going to move over to the brand new champion that's coming out in a few days, Mr. Smolder.
He doesn't seem like a mister to me.
Well, I checked.
More like Smolder Chun.
Yeah, I checked out his audio already. I was making sure he didn't have an annoying voice or a ridiculously awkward accent.
Well,
or
you
something.
felt that.
He does look kind of creepy in the face, though. Otherwise, I think he looks kind of cool.
Yeah. They just, I don't know. He's cute. It's just,
yeah, he's cute enough.
You know, they caught him in a weird pose in some of the model art.
Alright, let's get into this little dude. This is going to be a new 80 carry. He's got a range of 550, so not too crazy. Think of like Lucian, I guess. And one of his big things is he's going to have infinite scaling, which is something that not a lot of 80 carries have. And I think he's definitely going to be one of the most... immediately going to be like a hyper carry in the late game with like how some of this stuff adds up. This is pretty crazy. Some of his Q and his passive in particular, with how fast I think he's going to be able to stack some of this. But let's just start off in the beginning. Why don't you walk us through this passive?
All right. So basically, the way that this works, every time you hit an enemy champion with one of your abilities. Or, and this is how you're going to get probably a majority of them, every time you you kill minions with Q, or monsters, you get a stack. And then every ability gives you bonus magic damage equal to a percentage of your stacks. And then in addition to that, as you get more and more stacks, your Q will evolve. There's 3 different forms. The basic one, the 25 stack form, and the 125 stack form. And then there's a 225 stack form as well. So there's 4 different forms. One of the important ones is the 25 stack form, which gives a little bit of AOE when your Q lands, and the Q is a point and click. So because you are trying to farm minions with your Q to get more stacks, you're going to be using that a lot. And because it's exploding. Your Q is going to hit a bunch of minions at a time once you have 25 stacks, meaning that with a single Q, you can get 4 or 5. I even saw in one gameplay video somebody got 8 stacks at once by taking out like a whole wave with their Q.
You said his Q is a lock-on, not a line skill shot?
Correct.
Okay. Well, first thing
think like an Annie Q. Also a fireball.
This whole time I was picturing kind of basically Azrael's Q or something. But it
doesn't
go very far.
They don't make too many lock-ons these days.
Big thing to note is the absurdly low cooldown that this ability has, which is definitely going to add to his snowball potential. And particularly of note is his 225 stack power, where he essentially gets the same thing building up as Aurelion Sol's E that he throws down, where the execute threshold keeps getting higher and higher and higher when he pegs someone with this thing, which is definitely going to add some seriously crazy moments in the late game when someone gets burned by his Q and they die with like 20 or 30% health or something.
Oh, more than that. Like you can 40 to 0 someone with a Q.
That sounds pretty crazy.
Yeah. When I'm saying 40 to 0, including the damage from the Q itself.
Yeah.
Worth noting is that usually you see champs like this, and it looks like they're mages and they'd be building AP, but all of these scale mostly with AD. The Ultimate does have really good AP scaling, but you're going to be building AD to enhance all these abilities.
Yep. So far, I mean, I really like the scaling thing, and I like the Q. I'll be curious to see how it all kind of comes together with the passive and the Q, but it looks pretty fun, I gotta be honest, and feels like he'll get to his second form of his Q, like, super fast, honestly.
Yeah. So basically, it's just those first few waves. You're not able to like really blow up the whole wave at once and push them. But once you're level 4 or 5, you've got 25 stacks.
I kind of was under a false impression of how this worked. If it's just like, I was kind of imagining him just kind of like shooting it into the minion wave. But if it's like a lock on, and I see here that the range on his Q is just as bad or worse than his own auto attack, which kind of brings down the fantasy a bit on this dude.
Yeah, I suppose. It looks like some of his ranges are a little bit weird, but some of them are very long, and he definitely looks like he's smooth and fun to play in general.
Yeah, he looks cool.
Don't underestimate the wave clear, and also don't underestimate the amount of damage that you can do just by hitting someone with a random stray Q late in the game if you have a bunch of stacks.
Oh yeah, he not only does
You're
all of
becoming like
the
a mini Elder Dragon, basically.
exactly. He's in the Q.
Yep. So that's his Q. It's the biggest component of his infinite scaling.
Yep. But all of his abilities scale infinitely, essentially, because they all get a
Yeah,
different cut
more
of
and
the
more damage
stacks.
each time. More and more damage, sure.
Pretty crazy, honestly. Okay, next up, we've got the Sneeze, and I'm picturing how this is going to look in game. It's kind of funny. I kind of originally thought it would kind of work like Caitlyn's E, but it doesn't really have any kind of effect on him. He just kind of shoots out this, what must appear like some kind of projectile slowly moving, kind of like Briar's little scream that she throws out. I'm kind of picturing. Uh, Feels like
The
this should do more than it does.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember exactly what I saw the Achu doing. Yeah, I don't think it's like the Briar E. I think it's more like you were thinking what the Q is, actually. It's basically a skill shot that once it hits, spreads out.
Yeah, this is cool and all, but it almost feels like this should have
Maybe like a
like,
Karma Q is a good way to think of it, actually. Like a much longer range Karma Q.
yeah, it feels like it should either slow for longer or have some kind of secondary effect.
Um, Sure, but you're getting I think you're getting burns. You need the Q to actually burn. I think you need the Q to burn, but you're getting a lot of damage out of it, especially with the stacks, and you're slowing them, and it is weird how all like the fire causes slowing. Like you would think it would just be burning damage over time, but yeah, you're getting a lot of damage and slow. And remember, this is 1500 range. This is a very long range skill. Um, and I don't know that I would say that it's like particularly like a part of Smolder's kit that is instrumental to his combo, but it's great long range poke, and it can be good to basically hit someone with it from long range, and then run in at them with your E, because the E doesn't do a lot of damage.
Well,
So
there's no way
you
you're
have a
ever
lot
gonna.
of rundown potential with this guy once you hit your W.
There's no way you're ever gonna not be able to max his Q first, because you're gonna want to be stacking as fast as humanly possible. So
Yeah, you're always maxing your Q first.
just feels like felt like there was just something lacking from this ability beyond just like barely slowing someone. The damage doesn't seem particularly good. That, on the other hand, it does do bonus
Ratios aren't
damage.
great, but it's still like the scaling with his stacks are quite good still. It's 55% of your stacks. Like the gameplay video I saw, the person did get fed, but they had about 400 stacks in 33 minutes. So if you add another 200 damage onto this, it doesn't look so bad, does it?
I guess if you hit everyone with it consistently, I guess it's useful.
Uh huh.
I have to see how wide the cone is or however it looks. I don't know. It's kind of hard to visualize. And how slow it is. Is it like as bad as like Renata and Maokai's ultimate, or is it something
Oh
they
no,
can
it's fast.
consistently hit someone with? You know,
It's fast. The
like
initial speed is 2,000.
is it gonna be like Scion's E, where he like shouts at you? Is it gonna be that fast or what? I don't know.
Let me think. I would say it's faster than a Lilia bowling ball. It's probably about 30-40% faster than that.
The end speed.
Yeah, I don't know if it slows down over time. It does. It does. Okay, but for the first 1,200 units, it's very fast. It's 2,000, and
Yeah,
then
that's pretty
yeah,
generous.
yeah. Beyond 1,200 units, it slows down to 400, which is a big drop off, but that's beyond 1,200 units.
All right, on to his flying ability, and this one also made me head scratch a bit.
This one I think
But
is cool.
I wasn't entirely sure. I'm thinking it was kind of similar to Aphelios's like spin around the thing and shoot people thing because it functions pretty similar. But at the same time, this is also supposed
Akshan
to
or Aphelios?
action. I meant,
Akshan. Okay.
yeah. What did I say?
You said Aphelios.
Well, Aphelios actually kind of does the same thing on his
That's why
Severing
I was
Q.
wondering. I wasn't sure that you actually meant.
Strangely, they do the same thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this is supposed to be I think what I don't understand is he gains this insane amount of movement speed, but he only gets it for like barely a second.
Right.
So
you could think of that as like a being worth like a dash that takes you maybe 500 units.
yeah, but it's a
Very
dash
quickly.
that you can like steer super reactively, right? So it would be kind
Right.
of goofy.
And not only that, you can go through a terrain. You could
Yeah.
go into terrain and then out of it if you want. You have full control.
Yeah, I feel like this is either going to be ridiculously strong or kind of unimpactful. Because if he's shooting 5 to 10 times in literally a second,
Huh?
that's going to be pretty crazy. And it doesn't say anywhere here if what the interaction is with like on hit effects and
So
stuff like that.
these are not attacks. I think there is no I'm not 100% sure. Maybe we can look in the details, but I believe from what I saw there is no interaction with on hits.
Well, it would still work with Black Cleaver. It's pretty cool.
What is that? Every time you deal physical damage?
Yeah.
And this is physical damage. That's a good point. Yeah, Black Cleaver would work very well with.
That's why
So
it's good on Graves.
I think you can continue to auto attack as you use this.
For 1 second?
What?
For the 1 second it's going on?
In the 1.25 seconds where you're going to get 2 or 3 autos off, yeah, like probably 2, you can continue to attack. That's important. Because the damage that the bolts themselves deal is pathetic. Even if you hit all 10 against the same target, it's 1 auto attack's worth of damage, basically. It's 100% total AD. And then like a completely insignificant physical damage, base damage amount.
Hold up, we gotta scroll up to see how good the stacks are on the Flip Flappity Flopper.
I think the stacks is...
Oh, they do magic damage.
Each one deals 20% of your stacks. So if you got 400, that's 80 per stack. Yeah, by the end of the game, that's actually pretty good. But for most of the game, this is doing like no damage. Mostly you're using it as a mobility skill to chase or to evade. And it is actually pretty good at that from what I've seen.
Well, at least he doesn't have anything that instantly resets the cooldown on this. That's a surprise.
I thought it would be cool if maybe like the stacking were a little bit less, but the bolts just did more damage, especially as you like got to your 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th bolt. Because I love the idea of this skill. And being able to just basically like fly around and as you're moving freely, just continually peg someone with bolts. That's just really cool. Too bad those bolts don't do jack shit until you have hundreds of stacks. Still a cool ability.
Yeah, I have to see it in game.
Really
it might be slightly better than we think it is.
No, it's a nice ability. Like, don't underestimate that you are moving it at a
I
pretty
meant the
fast
damage
speed.
component, but yeah.
Oh, the damage component is very underwhelming. I've seen it.
Well,
you're not always going to hit the same target 10 times either. And then one of the most dumb names I've ever seen for a skill. I'm not even going to say it. I don't think you're going to embarrass yourself by saying
wait
it.
a minute. You're not going to
It's
say
ultimate.
something stupid they named? Get out of here, dude.
Even I have my standards, and this falls well beneath them.
This is a rat-a-tat levels of stupid.
Rat-a-tat-tooey?
You remember they changed Twitch's ultimate for like a couple months? They changed it to rat-a-tat-tat or something.
For a few years, I think. It was
something stupid.
Yeah, what was it?
It was rat-a-tat-tat. That's how dumb it was.
Yeah. Look, they can't all be winners, but
Spray and Pay was super genius 14 years ago, man. Come on.
The only good thing about this is if your friend nails an enemy with this, you could say they got slain by your mom.
I guess I'm gonna really have to see how this looks.
All week.
See how this looks in the game before I judge how cool or stupid it is. It sounds really cool.
It doesn't even look like you really see the mother dragon. It's more like it looks almost like an Ezreal ult, actually.
Well, that's a bummer. I was hoping you'd see some big shadow fly over the top or something.
Well, they're saving that for the skins.
That'd be pretty cool. Alright, let's go through this. This is basically just some nuke. There's not really a lot to it. It doesn't interact with the stats, strangely. That guess would probably be too crazy. And then it just does bonus damage in the center, which is kind of standard for a lot of stuff these days.
Bonus damage in the sweet spot.
And then
it also heals Smolder himself when it passes over him.
Heal component feels utterly uselessly tacked on, considering it. Base numbers are pathetic and it doesn't scale with AD.
Yeah, you're not going to be building much AP with this guy. I mean, you could, but you're probably not going to.
If they were going to do that, it should have just healed every one of your allies who was in the blast radius. It would probably feel more impactful.
Oh god, we're going to have support fucking Smolder?
Well, the numbers are so bad. I mean, what the hell is 200 in the late game? I mean, that sucks. Redemption is better.
Fair point, yeah. Yeah, 3% lifesteal is better.
And honestly, the actual damage component isn't really that tremendous either. This will probably be the best earliest in the game. I don't think this is actually going to scale.
You know what the dumbest number ever was on an ult? Nico getting a 75 shield late game when she popped her ult. That was the most tacked on garbage I've ever seen. This could at least save you in a clutch situation where you're in a literal firefight.
If I'm not mistaken, she got extra shield ratio per champion she hit when she was in her ult back in the old days.
I think she got 25 more for every champion she hit.
And that definitely was not tacked on as hard as this heal is. That was actually useful.
I disagree. I think this is more useful than that was. I mean, granted, we're comparing a turd to a larger turd, but...
yeah.
The damage component is nice. Just think of it just like an Ezreal. It's not global, but it does go a very far way. And yeah, deal some damage.
Yeah, it says the range is 4,000.
Yeah, it's maybe a third of the map.
And backwards range, is that how far it starts behind him?
Yeah, I believe so. I did see at least one thing where he had already moved out of the way by the time that the ult went past him, so it didn't heal him.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so he has to stay in place for a moment in order to get that heal.
Well, it says here that the sweet spot is only 125 width. That's not very strong. I mean, so how wide is this thing? Is it like Senna's ultimate wide?
No, it's definitely not Senna's ultimate wide. I would say it's wider than a True Shot Barrage, but not by a lot.
Hmm. I was hoping for a little bit more, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, like this was a little bit of a miss to me. I don't think it's a bad skill for an ADC to have, but I think they could have done some spicier stuff with it. Give it something other than just another slow and more damage, and also like have it interact with the stacks in some way.
Yeah, it'd be cool is it just they keep the
Like
damage
this
component,
upgrade is to get more
but
stacks.
then the stacks interact with the heal, but no AD. Then you'd actually have some kind of cool thing to work on late game. You have this
Agreed,
big
agreed.
AoE heal, and I'm still playing with the fact that it heals everyone on his team that gets hit by it. That would be cool.
Yeah, this skill is a little bit of a miss for me, but I think the other three are all pretty cool.
Yeah, I
And
kind of,
W is okay.
I actually think the last 2 years we've seen, in my personal opinion, I think the champ design hasn't been as great. I feel like there have been a few bangers like Yone, like Lilia, Vex. I think have all been really cool. I know you don't like Briar, but I think Briar is pretty cool. But this, I like kind of a return to a more standard, less crazy kit, and this feels a lot more straightforward than a lot of the stuff in the past, and I really like
It
this.
is. It is. We haven't had like just like an ADC that does ADC things for I don't even know how long.
Plus, I can actually
Mira's
see
not
this
that,
champion.
Kallista's not that, Zeri's not that, Aphelios is not that. Um, you know, who was the last new ADC champ that just did regular ADC things?
Yeah, but plus I can actually see this champion consistently going bot where as like you
Mhm.
said, the other newer AD carries have all been either very unpopular or for some reason don't even go bot like Action, Neela, and Senna you don't even really see go AD carry anymore.
Yeah, because of how often he's going to be using his abilities, like you can think of Smolder in the same vein as Ezreal or Corki. And I do think of him as like a legitimate ADC, but one that's probably going to go like mid, the same way that a lot of like Lucians and Varuses do now.
Hmm,
Um,
I don't know.
I see him as going mid the most often, but also bot lane fairly often.
I don't feel like he'd
I think
have a
it'll
lot of
probably be like a 60. I think it'll be like a 60-40 split, which we don't see that often.
I don't feel like he'd have really a lot of threat against like an immobile mage, Whereas a mage would have way
He
more
actually
range than
does.
him.
He
And his
actually does.
range is actually kind of bad.
His auto attack range is kind of bad, but his poke range is insane with the
Just
W and the R.
yeah,
And
the
and in
W
a
and the
mobile mage,
ultimate.
the nice thing is he can fly. He can fly so quickly next to them and even around them as they try to hit him with a skill shot to slow him down with like a Zerathi or something like that. And then he basically just keeps taking auto attacks at them while weaving in the Q whenever it comes off of cooldown. And there's not much that a mage can do about it once they've missed a key skill.
I hear what you're
Uh,
saying. Where like
yeah.
it's basically Lucian syndrome mid lane, the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced it'll be as good as Lucian, who can kind
Even
of
Octane, I think,
get
was
away with
originally
it.
supposed to be an ADC, right?
Who? Did you say Action?
Yeah, wasn't Akshan supposed to be like an ADC originally?
Is he not an AD carry? I don't know why no one plays him bot.
No one ever plays him bot.
Yeah, he is an
But
AD
I
carry.
think they intended him to go there.
I have never seen someone play him bot before, and I don't know why.
I've seen it, but it's usually failed. Maybe that's why. Um, yeah. So like, I don't know. Like, just for the fact that they didn't get too cute with him. They didn't try to make him something that he shouldn't be. They made an actual ADC, and they made him one who's interesting to use the skills of, but also interesting to actually weave in the autos. Almost like an MF, right? Like Corki, it's not as important to weave in your autos, even though it's nice. Um, for Smolder, it is important, and it contributes to a lot of your damage, but so do your skills. I think it's just a well-balanced champion. I don't like the infinite scaling that much, but I will say, if you're going to add infinite scaling to any champ, add it to an ADC, who are supposed to be these like late-game superstars that have to scale up. Don't add it to like tanks in the top lane or even mages in the mid lane. This is the place to add infinite scaling, and if you're gonna do it, I think they did it well here. Only miss for me is the ultimate. Like, should have been more interesting. Should have done something a little bit different than the rest of his kit. But overall, I'm gonna give this an 8. I think this is a pretty solid champion, and I like it much better than most of the too cute by half champions that they've released in the last 2 years.
Yep. Action, Neela, Zeri.
Mm-hmm.
What was the other one we said that sucked?
Akshan, Nyla, Zeri, Aphelios.
I think he's okay.
Um,
He's just been nerfed a bunch.
yeah. And there's just so many like ADCs. Oh, Samira.
I think she's okay.
I mean, she's okay, but like she's not what you want an ADC to be when you like hear like they're gonna make a great new ADC.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I was really happy with Briar. I was
Mm-hmm.
really happy with Hui, and I'm really happy with Smolder. I think I'm also going to give him an 8 out of 10.
Mhm.
This feels like a champion that could have came out like in 2012, 2013 or something, and I like what I see. He looks fun. I can't wait to try him out and see how high you can get that silly execution threshold on his Q up to. That seems pretty goofy. I'm still surprised his Q is a lock-on. I did not expect that. Guess I didn't read the fine print. I was pretty sure that was going to be like just like Ezreal's Q, but shorter.
The way they describe it, it sounds like it's a skill shot, but it's not.
Yeah, I don't know. Don't know about that. That could be a real, like, kind of a gateway mechanism to give him a harder time with his lower range. I expected him to have not be such a shorter range champion outside of his autos, but it looks like he's going to be more short range. I don't know.
He can hit a couple things, like I said, from real long range, and then if he wants to, actually go all in instead of just poking, yeah, he has to fly within short range of an enemy, but he has the tools to do that. This feels like a good throwback to, like you were saying, I would say like Season 3, Season 4, they were coming out with a lot of, like, not overly complex, but interesting champs that had maybe, like, a little bit more spice than the champs from Season 1 and 2. And, this feels like a really good throwback to that, and I even feel like maybe the targeted Q, rather than being some type of like fancy skill shot, is a little bit of that throwback to when champs were a little bit easier to understand, and maybe there was a little bit less skill expression in the game, but the game was good.
That it was.
And it just feels like the entire kit to me is more than the sum of its parts, which is not something that I can say for champs like Renata Glask.
Yeah, with the way the Q functions, I almost feel like a Sheen item might be mandatory because the Sheen cooldown would be up like constantly.
He feels good, and he does have some like moderate mana costs, especially with how often you're using that Q. So I think that Essence Reaver is a completely reasonable buy.
Or Muramana, since he's throwing so many abilities at you.
You can, yeah.
Yep. What do you think? What do you predict that people would build as the first item on this guy the most?
Ooh, if not Essence Reaver. Well, there's going to be some AP clowns who are probably going to build Liandry's based on how often you can use these skills. As far as an AD item, I don't think I have a good prediction for you. What do you think?
Well, I don't know if his E is special case to max out Conqueror right away, because they've been doing that on a lot of champions lately that used to not break the rules, and every other champion would have to stack Conqueror like the slow way, like everyone else.
Yeah.
So, assuming he's going to get lethal tempo, and he won't be able to instantly proc press the attack or Conqueror, I think a Bork sounds pretty good. You know?
I don't see him as being like an attack speed type of carry.
I don't think you can rely just on queuing people. I mean, the cooldown's really low, but it's not like it's not like Twin Fang low.
It has such a good AD ratio that, like, I think you want more AD and a little bit less. Like, he has some good crit synergies, but particularly less attack speed is, I think, what you want from him.
No, I disagree. I think he's going to kind of function like Kog'Maw almost, but
I can almost see the world where he goes for Hubris first.
I think he's going to be kind of like Kog'Maw almost.
No, he's definitely not a Kog'Maw.
Because his Q cooldown isn't low enough to be like Ezreal, and he has to be close enough all the time to
It
constantly
deals enough. It deals
heal
enough
people.
damage that, like, you just need to finish with a few more, like, autos. You don't need 21 different autos to take down an enemy.
Well, assuming it has like a really clean animation where he can like
Huh?
constantly be queuing and auto attacking, and it doesn't feel awkward to do both at the same time very often,
Yeah.
uh, I feel like he is going to kind of play like a hyper carry.
Feels to me, no, I really, it feels to me from the gameplay footage that I've seen, feels to me like he's maybe autoing half the time, using abilities half the time. I'm really looking at him in that same vein as Corki, Ezreal, maybe Misfortune. Um, I don't think attack speed is the way to go. I don't know. The more I think about it, the more I might start with like Hubris, just to stack more throughout the game.
Hmm. I feel like so much is going to be dictated by the fact that his Q is a lock on instead of a skill shot. You know,
How so?
it's gonna encourage you to have to auto attack a lot more because of the limitation on how queuing
On the
somebody.
range, you mean?
Yeah, because the range
Yeah.
on his Q is even shorter than his auto attack.
Don't forget that you can also, like, once you've evolved the Q a couple times, just hit something near your target, and then it'll explode onto them.
Yeah, I don't think you can consistently count on that though.
No, not consistently, but sometimes good for fighting within minion waves. Yeah, I just think of him more as an ability-based ADC, and not a hyper carry in the way that you normally think of a hyper carry, like ADCs. Like buying all these multiplicative attack speed and critical strike stats to multiply their AD. It's more like you're just trying to build a lot of AD and get a lot of stacks, and that's where
Well,
you're becoming a hyper carry.
it literally
So,
says that his Q does bonus damage with critical strike chance, and his stacks increase with critical strike chance on his Q.
sure, but that's 30% max based on your critical strike chance. Whereas, doubling your AD, you're doubling a 130% AD ratio, plus you're doubling the explosion amount. I just think that pure AD is worth a lot more on him than those other multiplicative stats. The critical strike is okay, attack speed is worse. And therefore, yeah, I see him as more of an ability-based ADC that happens to be able to hyperscale, which is cool. Because, like you said, right, Ezreal is in a place where it's like he can't really hyperscale. Misfortune, cannot really hyperscale. He's kind of the first ability-based ADC that's going to be able to do that this well, and
Misfortune
that's
can be a
exciting.
hyper carry if you get the one person that's not dumb enough to only build lethality every game.
She can be, but she's not as good at it as most ADCs are, and you still got to hit that perfect ult like in a jungle trap.
See, I'm viewing his Q like Kog'Maw's
Mhm.
W, Bio Arcane Barrage, and what I think what people want to do is when they get like the necessities out of the way, which might be Muramana, might be a Sheen item, I think they're going to want to build like Navori Quickblade so they can get his flip flappity flop going again really fast,
Flip, flip, flop.
so then he can do his mobility skill very consistently, you know?
Yeah, his Q really reminds me more of like maybe like a Hui skill or like an Annie Q, some weird combination of those. It feels like a Hui skill just at shorter range. Um,
I see
and
Navori Quickblade in this champion's future.
okay, that's interesting. That's
It's
interesting.
basically good on any AD carry that has mobility.
Yeah, and with the amount that he's using his abilities, like Novori seems like if you're gonna build some crit and attack speed, that might be the place to get it. Yeah, interesting champion. Definitely will have some more interesting builds than I think a lot of the other ADCs will. And like I said, just feels to me like greater than the sum of its parts.
Yep.
I hope he has like interesting voice lines when he attacks the dragon.
Oh, I listened to him. He sounds like a little kid. It's kind of annoying, but not so annoying that I can't tolerate.
You think they brought the Millia voice actor back?
You know,
that just said stop sounding Hispanic.
That might be what it is. Actually, it does kind of sound like that might be it.
It does. It does have that same like timbre to his voice, right?
Something like that. It's not like action or Rakan levels of like aggravatingly, stupidly annoying, so I can stomach it.
I got a guilty pleasure for Rakan.
He's not man enough for Xayah. Let's get one thing out of the way. All right.
Who is?
That does it for 14.2. This went on for 12 hours longer than I wanted it to. You got any final words for Smolder?
Get some good voice lines, kid.
Yep, I'm looking forward to trying him out. It should be fun. Hope it ends up being as cool as I think it is. I feel like the lock-on the Q is going to kind of limit the power fantasy, though.
I think you'll like him.
All right, that does it. We'll see you guys next time. Didn't forget about the Champion Judgment episode. I don't know when we're going to come out with that, Kindred, but I'm working on it, I swear to God.
I'm ready, man.
I know I still have your thing. I didn't look at it, though. But we'll see you guys next time.
Take care.